starting on Ian time. As Brian likes to point out, I'm always 5 minutes late. Good morning, Kate. How are you?
Great.
John, can you tell us about these numbers that are up here before you?
For sure. So this is just a follow-up from where we were yesterday, and one of the questions I believe that was Councilor Greg asked for confirmation of how many staff we have in each employee group. So I asked our HR manager just to confirm those numbers. So this would include all permanent staff. There's not any seasonal to temporary contractors present in these numbers. For non-union, we have 70, 1189 is 24, 443 is 42, and fire, there's 29 uniformed officers. Sometimes you'll see that number higher if we include the chief and deputy chief in the fire department. It becomes really validate them, but they are not.
Doesn't include police then.
This does not include police, no.
1189 is outside, 443 is inside.
Other way around.
Vince, how many police officers, what's your staff over there? Not police officers, full staff.
Full staff including part-time, full-time. We fluctuate a little bit. We're with part-time staff. We're usually around 90, 99, and that can fluctuate a lot.
So fall is 90 to 93.
That's everybody. That's special constable,
Okay, that's
part-time
everybody.
staff, full-time staff.
That includes part.
The other item we had to follow up from yesterday was Councillor McManaman asked for a bit of a reconciliation between what our total premium is and how that breaks down towards each benefit that it covers. So this tries to do that. It's not a perfect reconciliation, and that would be because it does fluctuate as staff levels change, as people sign up for family versus single benefits. So the bottom line here of $1,043,000 is what I'm trying to reconcile to what our premium is. So I got that to $1,022,000, and that would again just be the timing of when they did theirs versus when we did ours. So the total EHS, that would be the drug and extended health plan. That's about half of the total. Another large chunk there would be the dental at $235,000. Then we have our long-term disability at $180,000. Standard life insurance around $80,000, and accidental death and dismemberment is at $6,000 a year. So that's how the annual premium translates to each of those companies. No, that's for just the city. The left-hand side says total annual premium combined with police, and that's because our premiums are calculated together, but this is just the city's share of that premium. The police pay their premium separately.
I'm sorry, and thank you for this, but the other side of that is the amount that we insure being held. Approximately $890,000.
I can go back to that. So if we looked at how much they paid out for 2015, that extended health number is the number that we're looking at here. So it was approximately $600,000. Then the next few sheets show dental and other items. So at dental, they paid out $211,000. I'm not sure that we have a breakdown. Well, we wouldn't necessarily have a breakdown like that would cover life insurance or long-term debt or long-term disability. department, not including wages and benefits, is $40,000, and that relates to an increase in reserve contributions. We have a summary page just like the others, so we're showing 29 officers, the fire chief and the deputy fire chief are included in here. The contract services relate to the amount that is paid to Owen Sound Police Services for fire dispatch. The other items are standard, but it is that last line of transfers to reserves that's increasing. And basically, that relates to the fleet replacement schedule. One of the things we did as an exercise for all staff this year is reviewing our fleet inventories and our expected replacement dates for every item within there. So there are some larger purchases coming up, and it was determined that the fire fleet contribution would need to increase in order to meet those demands. So we've increased the annual amount going to the fire fleet reserve by $25,000. The other $14,000 relates to creating a reserve for bunker gear. And this is just to sort of even out those purchases. Bunker gear is something that has to be purchased on an annual basis. So rather than seeing any sort of fluctuations, we're going to do a stable contribution to the reserve, and then when that bunker gear is actually purchased, rather than it being funded from the tax levy, it'll be funded from the bunker gear reserve. So we are doing that this year, and we do have bunker gear in the 2017 capital budget that will be funded from this reserve. So it's showing up in operating rather than in capital. It's basically what's happening.
Thank you, Roger. Justin, do you mind just giving me another brief overview of what your fleet strategy is? I know we just recently did that change when we had to sitting on the fire advisory committee. We did that change.
We actually have that memo attached here as well.
As the apparatus goes, I'll take you back to late 2015. We had a mini pump, and it was a backup apparatus, and it was traded in. So at that time, we had our frontline pumper was a 2007, and then we had a 2004 aerial, which was a 75-foot squirt. It was a straight strip from nozzle to end of it. And we had the 1995 Spartan aerial platform, which was a 20. And then we had the mini pumper that was backup. The mini pumper was traded in, and in the spring of 2000 and this year, we purchased a used pumper off Saugeen Shores. That brought our fleet up to, as far as the frontline apparatus, right, we had a 2012 Spartan Saugeen Shores. Then the first truck. The second truck was a 2004 Squirt, which is a 75-footer, and the 95-foot platform. The 2007 pumper was put into the backup. So now we had a backup apparatus in case one of the frontline trucks went down. We had something to move in to pick up the slack. The issue we're getting into now is the NFPA recommendations for stating that any frontline apparatus, as soon as it hits the 15-year mark, it has to go into the backup mode. So now we've got to start planning 15 years. Every apparatus cannot be run as a frontline truck. And so we have the 2012 right now and the 2004 Squirt. The recommendation is for this year to start and with the process of buying another frontline pumper. The 2004 aerial will go into backup mode, and we will run as frontline trucks will be a 2012 pumper, the 2016 pumper, and the 1995 platform. Plan there is to go down to one aerial device in the city. So rather than replacing the 2004 Squirt, replace it with a pumper, and there will be a savings there of approximately $5,000 to $600,000 depending on the building's development. So So at that time, we would be running the 2016 Frontline pumper. We would be running the 2012 pumper that we would purchase from Southern Shores, and we would have the 1995 platform, which would be run as the aerial truck. The 2004 Squirt was the window backup roll, and the 2007 pumper was the trailer. The issue we're running into right now is the 2004 Squirt and the 2007 pumper are made by the same manufacturer, which is now out of business. The costs are going up in it. When they went out of business, I understand somebody in the States bought all the parts they had. So as they go down in quantity, they go up in price. So as soon as we have a problem, we're at their mercy as to what we can get the parts. So the potential there is for an issue. That is the idea of moving the 2004 to the backup roll to get the money. The other thought here is to go down to one aerial device, and I think we spoke on this before, to now use our neighbors now. Saugeen Shores has an aerial device, Durham has an aerial device, Meaford has an aerial device. So if we have one going sound and we do have a major situation, mutual aid will be initiated, Port Elton will come this way, Meaford, Durham, whichever, and then with that, our truck will be going to that. With this plan of having the 2004 Squirt into a backup roll, we still have the second aerial device, only if the backup roll will still be used. If at that time, what I have in here for 2020, our 100-foot platform will have been 25 years old. And so it is getting to be an old truck. It's still in excellent shape. I can't say that there's anything wrong with it, other than how old it is. And NFPA doesn't care on miles or condition, they look at age. So we are 10 years older now. The thinking here is that, depending on the chief of the day, we're going to have our second aerial as a backup truck. It'll be sitting there for 8-9 years. There will be a history of how often that truck was used. So now the chief of the day can take a look and say, if that truck was used twice in 8 years, you could probably justify the fact that we don't need that second aerial when it's approved. If it's used 15 or 20 times, he might be able to come back and say, I can justify that truck and I've approved it, because it is saved enough work. So our major issue here is NFPA recommendations stating 15 years for the frontline truck. It was in the backup roll. Not much we can do about that. The downside is if we don't go by that recommendation, is the fire underwriting people will come in and say you're not meeting that standard, that we recommend you have insurance rates. I'm not saying it will, but there is a possibility.
Yeah, is anybody manufacturing fire trucks in the county?
I believe they are, but what happens is the chassis come from the States. So you buy the chassis and pump comes out here and they might manufacture the box. That's what our 2004 2007 are. They're our business. And parts are extremely rare.
Doug, has anyone started to do aftermarket manufacturing? I think at some point there's enough demand for parts that somebody.
There is, but then the issue we get into, for instance, we got our own pumper and the fuel tank straps. That's what brought it off. Tank it off. We were a week and a half to these parts. Because so now we're jerry-rigging around the custom-made stuff, which is the cost up. And again, you have your apparatus on service.
My other question is, there are places like Lions Head that at the end of the day, very most of the cars that they have look pretty old. They just don't know about recommendation, or I think it seems like some of the surrounding towns are using a lot older now.
And again, they're going by the same regulations we are.
Just requiring it.
And again, it's all expensive. And again, that's what I'm getting at with our apparatus truck. It's expensive shape. There's absolutely nothing wrong other than we can come in and do it. And you can take a look at the number of that truck, and it might not be the difference. So I said, okay, so how much can you come in and do it? I do, and $20,000 at that time, and we did 11 years to consider.
That's a good down payment for a reserve fund.
So then I looked into taking our truck and having it brought up to the standard if possible. And so we can change the lights, we bring them up, down to the lights, we can change this, but we can't put airbags in the cab. So you can still take a truck and you can make it, I think a truck is still not 2016.
The impact from underwriting, is that an impact then that hits the city's insurance? What's the flow through on that?
It would be the insurance for the actual residents of the business.
Okay.
So they would come in and they would give us a rating as far as us dealing with the single family structure, how well we can deal with the situation there. And also a rating as dealing with industrial. And we have a fairly high rating ourselves. And I'm not saying the airplane's going to throw that way out of whack. It's just part and parcel of a whole bunch of stuff.
Thank you, Worship. We will be, within the next 12 to 18 months, maybe on the fire under fire report, fire strategy. So we will be obtaining on the council.
Because the open marketplace can do wonderful things in terms of being more competitive for a resident or a commercial when you're playing 6 different companies against each other for the best rate.
It's underwriter, it's an overall, so all the insurers rely on that. So there's no running around the fund of that.
But primarily, what, meter access, hydrant access, and distance. Those are the two main. Yeah.
So we work with the web service on more lines. They look at the entire fire safety for your entire municipality. So it's your force, your vehicles, your hydrants, it's so many things that you can't manage. It's an overall picture of what's the safety rate of fire in your community. It's certainly a valuable tool for the chief and the council moving ahead in the next 12 to 18 months. I think what Doug is saying, again, as PA standard, is if we have a fire, if we have any incident, any fire, or all that, if something did happen just the way that it was believed by the NFPA, they would come in and do an observation. And one of the things they looked at was what your vehicle was actually in performance facility. Even though the chief was saying this vehicle, which is said they in great shape, it broke down. The first thing they'd say is, that vehicle's 25 years. Even though you said it's great, it's well over our standard, and that isn't believable. So it kind of, quite frankly, cover the city's liability that you don't have these vehicles get fuel, even though, like your car, once in great shape, no one's really rating for you. It didn't start that next morning you got the truck. It would be for us. So it's really, and maybe put more than that. And if something ever happens there, they have to answer that bell. It didn't perform.
Did you really want money?
Chief, thanks for the excellent report and excellent explanation. My question is, so you want to go to a first response, we've got 2 companies responding, like the hospital or something like that.
Now, I think the aerial will go to what we have now is the aerial, all 3 trucks are going to the construction. Fire related, all 3 of them.
Why aren't we just replacing the 2004 aerial with a brand new aerial?
The issue I'm getting at, we're looking at our apparatus, and I have talked to all the trucks. 2004 is actually better shape than 2007. And we're looking at the maintenance cost of 2007 issues we had, potential issues we had with it. This truck came in, and at the time, they were
said if there's a structure, sorry, what kind of call would comes between both pumpers and which aerial response?
The aerial platform. That's all the word. I'm looking at it, the aerial platform, and the two frontline pumpers, it's our frontline response line.
So won't we get in trouble with ratings if we have a 95 as a first response to structure failure?
Again, anyway, and now the definition of what is a frontline access. So our two pumpers going in, they're laying the holes, they're laying the fire, the aerial truck is standing back out the block. If it's needed, it's there, it comes in, it's there, it's work. And nobody can give me an actual definition of what is a frontline access. Yeah. That's the operation.
But in short, you're recommending replacing the pumper now as opposed to the aerial because that's a problem with that pumper. And maintenance costs.
And again, that's part and parcel of it. And also with the fact that I have a hard time justifying it in various places. You know, so we have got a history of going south with various places. Instead of, this is a plan, instead of just cutting it off cold turkey, going that way, we can work our way into it and get into history that secondary is still there as backup. And if it's called in, it's there, and you can still use for help. When I'm giving the numbers, and these are by no means accurate, well, the trade-in for our 2007 pumper is going to be in the neighborhood of $80,000. If you trade in the aerial, I'm guessing that maybe numbers because it's that old. And now you look at the difference for $50,000 or $60,000 or $70,000, it's worthwhile keeping that at 8 or 9 years of backup.
Thank you.
So that pretty much wraps up fire, but since we have been talking about fleet, I wanted to just sort of touch base on our overall fleet capital, and I think it was one of the requests that came out of our last meeting to see that fleet schedule, what we have in our fleet, and how it's planned to be replaced. So this is just a reminder what our current fleet budget is looking like for 2017. That's all
Can you pull on 17 answer on that document? All that. Right.
Pete, I just wanted to ask about the fire numbers. Maybe it'll come from you. Richard, do you know the numbers that have come to the police and fire having got their such and such increase?
Right, that was, came out of AMO, and if police and fire had gotten the same increase as other municipal employees in Ontario between 2010 and 2015, we would have been saving $479 million.
So then I look at the fire budget here, and it's $260,000 higher than the budget.
280,000.
$280,000 higher than last year. So if this council is bold enough to say, you know what, the budget's the same as it was last year, we would wipe off what percentage.
That's roughly 1%.
Scott?
There's a resolution there that I move to alter the calculations for the forthcoming years of 17, 18, 19, 20.
Sorry, yes, that's the staff record that should say that council increasing the contribution to the fire reserve by 40,000 in 2017 and then 25,000 in each of the next 4 years. And I was going to come back to that, which will highlight how that's reflected and how that impacts the total fleet schedule in the next slide.
Well, I think in respect to the fire department, the increase not only putting away in reserve this year is quite high, but it's the inflation that we've been taking and added like these years have to be realistic and right now they aren't. And doing this will get us in better shape. So the year we do have to buy a piece of put that size of material, but we're not all of a sudden be looking at always going to much of that year.
So, what information do you want?
Certainly, or if you want to wait just till we get to the end of this, that might provide you with a bit more
I'll go back
background.
to start with that one.
I do that right now, understand now. Well, I've got all the other lead information for you and go through it. It's separate. I do think that moving forward, we could be a little under the reserves. This is not that 5 to 7% dollar here, no.
Motion to table for the report.
Motion, all in favor?
Basically, this is taking our total city fleet, and I'll just try to make it a little bit bigger. We'll look at the fleet for 5 years here. So every department has its own fleet schedule and its own fleet reserve. This document attempts to put those all together so that in some years when one reserve may have a shortfall, we can offset that with the surplus in another reserve, and overall reduce the amount of contributions we're making as a corporation. So in fact, what we were going to see this year was a $58,000 increase to the fire fleet reserve in order to meet some of our upcoming fire fleet purchase obligations. But we were able to reduce that by relying on some of the other reserves that their timing might not come to later on in the process. So basically what we're looking at here is the opening balance of all of our fleet equipment reserves, less planned purchases for the year, the total funding from tax, the total funding from water and wastewater, and then an estimate of what the reserves would earn in interest to come to a closing balance. I wanted to point out that part of those reserves is made up of the waste management reserves that carry forward. So we did have reserves for waste management equipment and the recycling equipment. That's still in there. If we were to take them out, then the balance of our equipment reserves would be $2.5 million. So you see as we go along and we make those purchases, there's a large fire purchase plan for 2017 as well as the larger one is in 2019. At the end of 2019, our fleet reserves are estimated to drop in total down to $300,000, and then we'll slowly build those back up over time in order to meet our other purchase obligations. But based on this strategy, we wouldn't need to borrow any money for any fleet purchases over the next 10 or 15 years.
So why are you taking away management just because you don't know the vehicle?
I'm not sure that those reserves will necessarily stay in perpetuity, so in order to see what the remainder of the active fleet reserves would be, that I wanted to show you separately. And I won't go through all of these in detail unless you have any specific questions. They are in your agendas, but this we've provided for every department what the complete reserve is, including every piece of equipment, its year purchase, and its planned replacement date. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So there's an example there of wastewater with the line and other reserves, and of course one of those obligations as it is short funded at the beginning. And then the other big one here is obviously fire at the very end. So we have that large purchase coming in 2019, putting the fire in a significant deficit position, but because some of those other reserves have surpluses for later on equipment, we're able to use those funds in the meantime until the fire reserve is built back up. So what we're seeing overall then is we will see an increase to the corporate fleet reserves over time, and most of that will be driven by fire until 2021, when we would have a stable contribution of $640,000 a year, and water and wastewater will increase until 2020 until there's contributing a stable amount of $90,000 a year. And then obviously that will probably change as time goes on, but at this point that would be the strategy.
My questions are on the actual fleet within some of the started. Unless you want to explain a little bit more, then it's
Nope,
a good
I was
time.
finished, that was a great time.
It mentions here a 2008 backhoe, which I thought we just purchased a backhoe last year for the first time. We didn't have one.
Your worship, we had one for public works, we didn't have one in the bar.
So we have two of them. The question is, yesterday I was thinking we had decreased down to 2 sidewalk plows. We purchased 2, so we're up to 4. And now it shows that we've taken 1 and transferred it to parks. Is that correct? So we're still eating old maintenance costs and fees and repairs and I didn't realize we were taking a unit from Public Works until this year. Got a further question. This one is Parks Equipment Reserve. I presume that's the ATV that's being purchased this year. I know it was approved a budget for $14,000, which is really high. You can almost get 2 ATVs for that.
It's not just an ATV, it's a vehicle, so it has a box on the back, so you can transport equipment, service, so I can understand why people buy 2 ATVs.
Okay, so we approved it at $14,000, then we're putting into reserve $8,000, and then $10,000 in 2023 to replace it again, or?
I'm not sure I see where you're getting that 8,000. The item that we approved purchasing is this all-terrain loader here at the bottom. It's going to be replaced in 2024.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah, 'cause I'm trying to find where the ATV is in here, and where's the reserve contribution for it?
It's a utility vehicle, so it's not really an ATV, it's a utility.
Okay, so at this time on here, we don't have any reserve contribution for the ATV. That's true.
It's in that utility vehicle component, in the parks, in the overall parks and cemetery. So yesterday in operating, that's where your contributions to reserves are. So overall, the rationalization of equipment in the parks and cemetery resulted in a net decrease to the equipment reserve contribution of 20,000, slightly up in the cemetery, down in the parks where you can additional pieces.
Okay. I think I was just trying to find one particular that's been added there, have a note box, so whenever.
To clarify, we don't calculate a contribution on an individual piece of equipment. Typically, sometimes you'll see one piece increase when we look at the maintenance stand or something like that. But what we did is we take the total parks equipment fleet overall and look at, okay, if these are our obligations in aggregate over time, what would that contribution come to?
But they're spending $7,500 a year on this amount, but
are specifically budgeted.
If I could just follow up on that, this year we did have $7,500 in the budget for spending, and I think less than $2,000 is actually been spent, so there was more in there. Local parks and cemetery, small building. Determined that certainly that we didn't need to spend on, certainly no spending.
Exactly, so what we're looking at here is a forecast. If we don't actually purchase one of those items, or if something's not quite the price that's shown here, it certainly would be taken from the reserve as it is necessary. So that's the tie into the capital budget. You'll see the actual purchases. So I believe that wraps up that section, and the next section we have here is police services. Oh, sorry, the motion that was tabled, yes.
Motion back on the table, any questions, any discussion? Move the recommendation that was there, that we go on our way to the reserve for the fire station. All in favor? That's great.
Perfect. So I'll invite Vince up to the podium here, and I'm just going to switch to his presentation. No problem. So if you want, I'll just go forward from here, if that works for you.
Sure. Morning, Your Worship Council. On behalf of Chief Sorberger and Police Services Board, I'm happy to present our 2017 operational budget. With me is the Chairman of the Police Services Board, Derek Pierce. Before I begin with the budget, I'm hoping that I can provide Council with a brief overview on the operations of court security, why we do it, and some of the drivers on our costs and what we're obligated to do, give you a basic understanding of that part of our service. So first of all, it's not an option for us to provide court security. We must, we shall. The Police Services Act says that the board is responsible, the Police Services Board is responsible for providing court security in any municipality and court proceedings that are conducted. And that spells out what we're required to do is basically security of the staff, the judges, the prisoners, transportation, just the safe operations of the courts. And please stop me if anybody has any questions. Peter.
Okay, we're required to provide a level of statutory requirement to the asset in our regard.
Yeah, the level is determined by, it's generally, the courts can refuse to sit if they don't feel safe. So where it is up to the chief to determine appropriate levels of security, they have to be appropriate. So we do that in conjunction with the judiciary, and I'll explain that as I go. That will become a little bit more clear. Okay?
But we still have the right to say no, we're not going to do what we want if they are getting close.
We don't. If the judiciary says we have a high risk case coming up and we want A, B, and C, then we must provide it that level of security. In the daily operations, yes, it is. The board actually is the responsibility through the police chief. But as I mentioned, the courts can refuse to sit if it's not safe. So it really is it's a cooperative effort, and we've been fortunate that we've been on the same page. We can't arbitrarily decide that we're going to have one court security officer for the entire court building and we're going to roll around. We have to provide safe and effective security.
The reason I'm asking that question is some jurisdictions, the court, the judges want to think that we just get so
I can't speak on that. I don't know what's silly or what.
We've had a judge here in town that sat until 11 o'clock on Friday nights, and 1 o'clock in the morning of the third trial. We are forced to secure the day. We don't have a choice.
Oh, yeah.
So it's ridiculous use or abuse of juries and staff, but we've been forced to secure them. So we really don't have any, we don't have the jurisdiction to do that. Go ahead, Jess.
Thank you. And as Your Worship was mentioning, scheduling and duration of the courts is the sole discretion of the sitting judge. We have had some extraordinary lengthy sittings, and we have to provide security. We're responsible for maintaining that and associated costs, despite the fact that the Old Sound Courthouse services all of Grey County and all municipalities and some parts of Bruce. It's our responsibility because it lies within. Nobody's lining up to help us out with the costs. There are. So the Owen Sound Consolidated Courthouse, it houses 6 courtrooms, and in any given day they can all be running for some. There's bail courts, Superior Court of Justice, criminal family, Superior Court for criminal family, and also civil. So our court staffing, it's overseen by one director of civilian services, a court case manager that manages all the court cases and documents. We have 2 full-time special constables and 13 part-time constables. So we primarily run on part-time special constables. Without reading, the duties essentially are anything to do with the safe handling of prisoners, the safe security of the judiciary courts. In addition to that, they also have to do DNA samples that are ordered by judges for certain convictions. They also assist with crime scene security of events. In the event that we have a major incident, we have to guard a scene for continuity. We often have prisoners having to go to the hospital for various reasons. We have to guard them there. The full-time members also assist at the station with property management and fingerprinting. So a little bit of a watershed moment was the closing of the Owen Sound Jail. It created some transportation issues and some added costs for that. Although the OPP transportation unit does the bulk of the transportation to the Central North Correction Center in Penetang, it does add some peripheral costs to us because in the past we used to, when court was done, we could just take the prisoners, take them to the Owen Sound Jail, shut down the courts for the day, and we're done. Now it's a scheduled twice a day transportation, so very often courts are done and we're waiting for the OPP transportation unit to come. So it adds costs, it adds staffing hours. If they're housed over meals, add meal costs. As I mentioned, and we're done. That's okay. Okay. As I mentioned, prisoners require medical attention from court, and it happens more than you think, whether it's real or feigned, or some drug withdrawal. We're quite often taking prisoners from courts to the hospital, and we're generally at the pecking order of medical priority at the hospital. So it could be anything. So that adds costs. OPP transport will not transport violent or disorderly prisoners, pregnant, or physically disabled. In their prisoner van, they don't think they can adequately look after those people, so we get stuck doing that on a one-on-one basis. As I mentioned, wait time for prisoner transport increases, and that increases costs. So just as an example, before the jail closing in 2011, in 2010, we were responsible for 243 prisoner meals. So far in 2016, it's gone up to 904. So those are costs we're responsible for. We can bill back to OPP for the cost of their meals for their prisoners, but our own prisoners are responsible. A bit of a changing moment for court security was a Brampton courthouse shooting. A gentleman stormed the court with a gun. There was a shooting, he was shot at the front entrance. At that point, Brampton Courthouse did have front door security. We didn't at the Old Sound Court. That raised some concerns with the local judiciary, so we sat down with them. This had been something that had been brewing underground before the shooting. This just really prompted it and brought it to the forefront. So after that, we began doing front door screening of all people entering the courthouse.
Brian, I got a question.
I'm sorry.
Vince, just on the transfer of prisoners, the OPP won't transfer disabled to pregnant.
Yes.
So we do? And that's two people?
Yes.
I'm the same line. Do we deliver them to Brooklyn or do we house them for a certain time?
No, we deliver them at a time. Our cells are just a temporary housing. We don't meet the requirements for it to be a long-term custody cell or just a temporary cell.
But what is the reason the LPP won't transfer these people?
That's their policy. It always has been since they've started. I think it has to do with the fact they have multiple prisoners. They're in a large paddy wagon and they can't monitor those people to the level required.
But the OPP doesn't do the actual transfer, do they? They carved out their transporting prisoners to another unit, right?
No, it's the OPP transport unit. It's OPP members.
It's a bit with our, the mic, because
Oh.
they are screaming and they don't be able to hear it.
So there's a man who's not young anymore, but he transports prisoners back and forth to our court. He's not an OPP officer. He works for a company. So transports it. I know because he told me one night he got pretty fine to jail his home and wanted to know where he lived. It's a prisoner in his car. It's late for the house. You know,
I don't know
things like
who-
this happen.
I don't know who that would be. That may be somebody directly from the police service.
My point is, the provincial government took our jail away from us.
Yes.
So they're the ones who are paying for the jail in Midland. They're the ones that should be paying. If we have to transport prisoners, we should be billing the provincial government.
It's an indirect cost that essentially download municipalities. We do get some funding related to court security, but not those extra costs associated with the jail.
Well, those are extra costs that I think that we should be taking up the torch for. But, for instance, if we go to the university, we should be assisting and request that funding be put forward for this sort of thing. Because that should not really be coming out of the this office or the
Right. Now, the ministry pays a per mileage fee to OPP for the transport costs. So their costs are covered. It's the peripheral costs of us having to wait. We don't have control of when we can get rid of our prisoners. And so we have to monitor them still at the Old Court. So those are the peripheral costs that we bear. The actual cost of the transport, we're not paying for it. OPP staff is covered by the ministry.
They, or the OPP pay the actual cost. If you transfer, do they pay your time as well as your travel?
No, they don't pay our.
Maybe take a step backwards and tell us what the process is and then where we become involved.
I'm sorry. So where we become involved is the OPP pick up all the prisoners in the morning from Central and North Corrections. They deliver them to the Old Sound Court. They have a circuit. They also deliver to the Walker Court. So they have two delivery times, once at around noon and then once at the end of the court day, which is a regular time, I think around 5 o'clock. So they transport those prisoners. They get a per mileage reimbursement, and I don't know what that is, from the ministry for those costs. we're able to bill back some of the transportation costs that we incur, those one-offs. But that doesn't, there's no method to recover those costs, those indirectly associated costs that we have with having to house prisoners for longer than necessary due to scheduling and the meals and those things.
So just the situation, court is finished, the OPP exam is already coming up, so they won't wait, correct? That's right. So they've gone, now you have a pregnant prisoner that has to go back to, yes. Okay, where are those two options from? What falls on the rule?
There'll be special constables either that weren't scheduled that day or continue on at the end of the day.
So the two special constables were already at the court.
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't interfere with the policeman in the city.
In most cases, no. On the rare occasion, where there's no special constables available, which would be very rare, we have.
So if you take someone from shift, you have to call someone who replace that person.
It depends on the staffing level. If the staffing is at minimum, then this would be good. We have to go in and call somebody in.
The community special guys are pretty crap. Township is how many hours?
You're probably looking at, with the, the intake and all that, you're probably looking at 6 or 7, I think. In good weather.
I'm going to go to Travis for the question. Peter?
Thank you, Richard. So when you're doing these transport costs, if they're an out-of-town resident, they're from Golden Drop, so they're registered to wherever, and then it's in the court system, but they're rolling over that time, do you get charged back against another municipality or a ministry, or we still have to absorb the cost even though that it's an out-of-town criminal that we're housing and feeding?
Yeah, the actual physical transportation costs we don't bear. We bear the extra costs on monitoring and looking after the housing and that works. So those staffing costs are ours that we don't get back. We do bill back meals for prisoners that are easy on ours, so they pay those costs.
So anything, if it's not a resident of Owen Sound, we can bill back on someone else on transporting them and food expenses. Just not the indirect cost of your staffing hours and that kind of thing. That's correct.
We don't get a physical bill for transportation. That is done through the ministry.
So the second question on that is, these meal costs, and you just said that there's an increase of 700 meals that we've done so far this year compared for the meal flows. What does that constitute? Does that constitute a trip to Tim Hortons as you're driving by, or does that constitute like a $15, $20 allowance that to feed someone?
It's a very basic meal. We have a contract at the Days Inn, which is right behind the courthouse, so it's a cheese sandwich and it's not extravagant.
So what would you think that expense would be just for that increase alone? We have to pay them for it.
Again, I'd have to have a spreadsheet on how much of that's a total number. So without having a spreadsheet of how many of those meals got billed back to OPP, and I'm going to really say ballpark half.
So it's minimum cost.
I mean, it's not staggering, but I mean, it's money we like to spend.
$7 per one.
$7.
They close Walker. It's hard when we get everybody to Walker.
Well, that could happen. Walker is very old, and there's already been some rumblings about some of the bigger trials coming over Sound because
Which is the RX now. Brian Cohen and everybody here and
Just on the pregnant and disabled prisoners, how do we get them?
we'd have to get them.
You have to drive the kind of tank and pick them up, bring them here.
I mean, that's not a everyday occurrence.
What's down back way?
And by disabled, it would have to be something that prevents them from being able to properly look after themselves. I don't have the number, but it's not significant. But it's just it's worth noting that there are we have to do stuff.
Okay, the one that's getting to me is, look at the transport, not transport, this order. A lot of prisoners are pretty conservative. I mean, they can just decline to handle somebody because they think he might get conservative.
No, that would be actively violent or
So a special constable going to handle it, but the OPP can't.
well, I don't think it has much to do with the physical ability to handle them. OPP has a large paddy wagon. They don't necessarily have the ability to closely monitor them. They're in a big paddy wagon. They've got other prisoners there, so it's more probably for protection of the prisoners.
They're in the streets, anyway. And there's a TV monitor. I'm sorry.
Don't forget, a lot of these people are attending court by video too, not always being recorded. If they're really causing a problem, they're not likely to come in, but they go all the time.
Just a question on the same point. How many prisoners would they be bringing in a tank? Dropping some here and going to work on in? How many would be?
It would really vary. I don't know.
So,
Depends whether it's the first appearance day. There could be as little as 3, there could be as many as 15. Like the first appearance day would be much busier.
so they wouldn't have 15 in one time, right? And is there an officer in the back of it?
So as I mentioned, that's it, yeah. So this is just an indication of the model that we changed with the front door screening so we front door screening of all people entering the courthouse, and that basically the same type of security you have in the airport, where you walk through a magnetic doorway, and then all your goods are put through the conveyor, X-ray. So this is just an indication on how that has affected our staffing hours. So this is just a 2-month comparison, the year before we implemented our security model, and then the year after. So you can see there is implications on the hours. And this is some staffing costs in relation to those are special constable hours. Now, of note, there is staffing, there's salary increases built in that, so it's not strictly an hour per hour cost increase, but that's how 2010 has So just to summarize it, some of the stuff that I've gone through, the courts in general are busier. So there's an increase in staffing hours. Because of the extra hours, there was adequate hours to hire 2 full-time staff, special constables, and we needed to hire 4 extra part-time. So that affected our budget. With training, they have to shadow an experienced constable. They're doubling up hours. Also, in 2015, we had 2 lengthy scene security requirements for the multiple arsons, and then we had a homicide at the beginning of 2015. But most of it impact cost. And then, as I mentioned, transport. And over that period, there's been a combined salary increase year after year on collective bargaining, which also affects the overall cost. So a bit of good news, though. So the province began to have a graduated funding model for court security to provide some relief to municipalities municipalities started receiving some funding in 2012, and it's incrementally increasing and will top out in 2018. So although our court costs are going up, we're able to lower our net costs due to the increased budgeting. So for this, sorry, repeat the minute, I'm sorry, I stepped away from the mic. So for 2017, our funding is going up 80,000 for court security, 313,000. And that's the end.
One question.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, that's nice for getting money from the province, but how much money are we losing on that operation every year?
Well, I wouldn't call it losing, it's the cost of conducting
No, we're
that
losing
service.
money, our ratepayers are paying for people from Wyerton and Silver-Maury. So we're losing money, we're subsidizing.
So, well, as you'll see from the budget, next year, the cost will be $291,000. That is not covered by external funding.
I just wondered how we could get funded for more than their cost would be in 20, was that 17 or 18?
Yeah, that's the net cost after tax.
Oh, okay.
That would be nice. Okay, so moving on to our operating budget. So just as a brief overview, our 2017 operating budget is going up by 126,000 and change, and that represents a 1.80 increase in our budget. By department, those are the figures. In the board budget, we were able to realize some savings with the retirement of a executive assistant position. We were able to make two positions and blend that into one, board secretary and executive assistant. That creates some savings. The officer increase is primarily wages, salary increases, and associated costs, in addition to increases in classification from first or second class to first, etc. The civilians, we were able to reduce a little bit. That was a deferral of one position and also a reallocation of wages. There's a lot of people that wear a lot of different hats, and to more effectively reflect the cost of those, we were able to reallocate some wages. And again, I've been through the court budget, it's at 291, and the reduction was primarily in the increase in funding.
Yeah, one of the questions that I have is, you're filling all those civilian costs, a lot of it is CRO, and it's not showing the income that's received from CRO.
That's just a snapshot of the bottom line of those.
That's after the income wiring, that's service for it.
Yes.
It's still costing you some.
Anyone else?
So as I mentioned, there's the lines that I just mentioned. That's a greater breakdown of some of the other budget items. That's salaries, which before grants and that is more than 100% of our budget. Legal and contract, our grants, and Peter, as you were mentioning, that line there is our revenue that we generate, $1.5 million. Most of that is through dispatch contracts, and those other revenue streams as well. Third party criminal record checks primarily. We do those, other requests for reports. We do get modest revenue from the difference in pay duty we bill out at a first class rate, and we may be done by a second or third class constable. And it's not a lot of money, but there's some revenue there.
So you're not, you charge administration for that for TV, but
It's, yes, it's all built into, the cost of benefits, administration is all built into the hourly rate. So line by line, this is our,
They have specific questions.
Yeah.
I just want to be clear. You don't have specific questions. You don't necessarily need to go through them.
Brian's got a question.
In the court security operating budget, insurance dropped by $1,500.
Our insurance dropped overall. We were, and Kate may be able to speak to more detail, we were paying an estimated amount, and I think Donna had some conversation, correct me if I'm wrong, Kate, and we were able to lower it. It's more reflective of an actual amount.
Yeah, through your worship, this would be upon moving to our new insurance agreement with BFL. They gave us a new quote on a per vehicle basis, so there was one piece of equipment under court security and
Yeah, and it's a smaller vehicle. We used to have a big paddy wagon. We no longer have that. It's a regular size cruiser that we have some of that.
so that'll affect the actual premium.
Just two general questions here for you. Yesterday we were going through the operating budget and one of our government instructions of an increase of basically our group benefits to the city and the city and our WSF equivalent at a 20 to 30% increase in the next year because of you guys could give a little bit of an explanation or something that the big services is kind of working on for some of the workers that are currently off for those kind of issues.
Yeah, sure. So we've hired a, I guess for lack of a better term, a backdoor specialist who monitors our WSIB. She stays on top of it. Actually, as far as industry across the province, I don't know if there are others, but we're actually doing not too badly there. We have a couple of long-term ones that we're hoping we can resolve.
On that, we've got 3 that are off long term.
Yes. One is scheduled for surgery. We're hoping that will resolve that issue once they have a recovery. The other one is eligible for retirement. We're hoping to pursue that. The other one is looking for ongoing needs for that person.
I'm trying to remember, are we hoping for some kind of a good back discount, something in workers' comp refund credit?
There was unrealized on one absence.
Yeah, so basically, we had already paid the surcharges that related to that individual last year. We haven't got our final statement from WSIP, but so long as they're satisfied that that return to work has happened, we can recover some of the surcharges that we owe. We'll find that out when we get our final statement.
So that may help us.
Yeah, so currently our estimated surcharge is $350. That wouldn't wipe it out, but it would certainly probably bring that down.
I'm not sure if you're the same thing. There's one that's back to work, there's another one that's termed.
So there may still be one that's outstanding, but I do understand that we're fingers crossed for the state recovery on the funds.
Sorry, Travis,
Sorry, my second question on that is, on something else is, so I know you do your criminal record checks, and that money you get there goes into reserve and kind of helps balance in some other things. And before past the budget, we realized that, the pay for like, football or the appreciation event, and those kind of events, and it goes to other things, but would you be able to kind of give a little better description of, how much money is in that reserve, or what you use that reserve, what goes in, what kind of goes out of that reserve, what further description of what that reserve actually is?
reserve. It's used for unexpected or exceptional capital upgrades. In this case, if you look at the board budget, there's money from the reserve brought in. That is to defer wage costs that associated with actually doing that function of the record checks. So it's used for some of that to offset the actual cost for doing that. And some other capital items that are on the ordinary.
So is there like a large share of money that's always sitting in that reserve for these capital projects?
There's about 17 million.
I was gonna say. I guess we got a city hall that you can pay for.
Did you notice that nobody blinked?
I was expecting laughter.
No one was surprised.
I also, I don't know what that balance is.
Why is that in budget? That should be some machines. That's the 32,000?
No, that is a portion that is transferred from reserves, and that is to offset salaries and costs for administering the criminal record checks. So that is self-sufficient. There is another line item, I believe, 17.
Must be something just showing the record check.
Yeah, there is a line item just records and data entry. There's a line item for revenue. There's some record management, police reports.
I wonder if for time, Brian, Jared, that's maybe something that needs to come up at our next board meeting, we need to report back to council.
Absolutely, sir.
Because frankly, I'm confused about that now that it's come up, it's not something you can see, at the meeting, probably should see what the balance of it, where it's coming from, and what it's going.
I'll have that for next meeting for you. I put it in the next budget for you, but I can tell you that, as you said, the costs of paying salary and benefits of the people who come to work, they do, they're bringing an hour of that, we back. Any revenue then is to offset capital purchases, so we recall, there was no request for capital money after it was all transferable to the board reserve fund from these, and that
We probably should see the accounting in that situation.
Just for, so there is a capital amount for this budget. 200,000.
There's 100,000 currently for police capital in the budget. I have not gotten final confirmation from Richard as to what that number is to be.
So obviously, we're not moving the budget today. We asked if these services will review board reserve, especially in context of the $2,000 request for this budget, and come back with a recommendation. Actually, I guess that's what we do.
Well, I just had one further comment to those record check revenues. So typically in past years, I don't think that necessarily shows up in the budget as the revenue coming in and then going to reserve. Instead, it's done as a year-end transaction based on the total revenues received. And those revenues are collected at the services. There is a bank account that holds those, and then we reconcile that bank account and show it as revenue coming in at the end of the year. So at that point, the revenue comes in, it gets distributed, some is going to capital, they use some to offset some operating costs, and then the remainder will stay in that reserve. I'm not sure what the balance of that account is at the end of the year, but that's how it gets treated. So it doesn't necessarily show up here in the budget.
But it should, correct? Like, we should be able to look at that and see what it is.
If I took it, this is a discussion going on, I'm going to take your question here.
Jim will give it back.
So I will make. Is it called board reserve?
This is called the board reserve.
That would be.
So the need the board reserve. I'll be back to council prior to the. There's a capital of $100,000. That's kind of complicated for the motion.
So you want to clear some
There is a lump sum recorded on the front page of revenue, and I believe that the Clean Record checks is included in that, it's just not separated. That's not all dispatch revenue, 1.5, and I think that is a cumulative sum.
We still need to have that clarified.
Yes.
This right now.
Okay.
So Jim, do you want to, Leanne, if you want to read it back?
So far I have that council asks the services board to remove the board reserve and contract with council prior to the 2017 budget being approved.
Exactly what it is.
Discussion to that motion, Peter?
Yeah, I'm a little mystified, number one, because whether it's that we've got a spare, we haven't had that information in the past. And second of all, why isn't the board reserve rather than the police reserve? Because it's not money earned by the board, it's money earned by the police.
Well, the board is responsible for the oversight of the government, so it's supposed to the board. It has to be controlled by the board.
Good call, Jim's question, so we can move on. All in favor? That's carried. You're done, Jim? Travis, did you have?
Last time the chief spoke, there was a discussion of additional contracts for dispatch. I just wondered, I started the information that I read it. Is there any new contracts for dispatch? No, not this time. All right, thank you.
The town president involved in that. I just want to have the contracts.
I can tell you, Your Worship, that we have several municipalities that have expressed an interest, but are on hold pending the outcome of the meeting.
Mary?
Thank you. Just while you're here, I wanted to find out how the taxi situation is working, since it changed to a fair rate.
Yeah, for the most part, it's been good, it's settled. I mean, we always have this kind of outbreak, but for the most part, it's, I haven't received any complaints from either, taxi patrons or.
Vince, just before you go, it would be nice to have the chief here.
Just as minor things about it. I didn't, we thought it was important. I should have mentioned that.
Just so everyone knows, we celebrated the chief's 40th anniversary being a police officer a week or so ago. In today's era, where kids get university degrees before they go into the police, and the odds of somebody ever getting 40 years youth is pretty limited. It's our understanding that he is the most senior police chief officer in the province. Quite a bit of experience. Kind of fun. We couldn't get him to tell enough police stories. But probably at some point he'll retire and we'll all spill out and thank you very much.
Thank you.
We want to take a quick break right now. A whole bunch of comments a quick break, 5-minute break. Okay. Who's up next?
Yeah, give me 1 second, and then I'll just put it in. Oh, that's that way they have it on.
Yeah, Mary, thank you, please.
Guys, I need Poma right now.
But you need more, you don't hear my brother. Yeah.
One more.
That Brian's the top line, you will not go.
Chocolate last 24 hours. Thank you, kids. I didn't even hang around.
Chocolate.
We're just gonna go through the library now, so the total increase to the city share of the total library budget is total increase is $26,000. And Tim is here to present his budget.
I love Tim's
This is, but before we get to his information, this is just the summary of how we've been presented with the library information in the past. So there's the total city share of the budget. That's offset by a provincial grant that offsets those library costs. And then this next sheet is just showing what our total library contribution, city share to the library has been over the past 5 or 6 years. So before we get right into Tim's comments, I'll just bring up an email that he did send just with a highlight of the change, and then I'll go through to his operating budget. This just talks about the total costs and that the library is utilizing some of their reserves in order to keep the budget below 3%. However, I think it points out as well that that's not a sustainable source of revenue. And that the budget is based on our 2015 known share of membership, so that number will be refined before the final budget is finalized in early 2017 once we have the 2016 version.
Thank you, Leadership Council. If I could for just a moment, I'd like to just explain a little bit around some of those budgeting issues that we face. The library, as you know, is a union library, not unionized, but it's made up of the municipalities of Owen Sound, Georgia Bluffs, and Chatsworth agree to provide library services together, and then we also additionally provide library services in the former area of Sydenham, what is now the municipality. The Union Library Agreement sets out that when the budget request is more than 3%, that it requires 75% of the members to agree to that increase for it to happen. Typically, the library has tended to, libraries tend to bring in a budget under that 3% year over year. Last year, we brought in our budget, it was less than that 3%. We did some calculations around our employee salary benefit costs dealing with maternity leave, and we didn't nail that in. So we actually took the savings, and that's created a larger balloon this year as we got back to regular saw and need to address. And for the longest time, the board has kept a couple of the budget lines to a level that is not really sustainable for the future. We've started to, for now, in the future, and we've tried to start to address that issue. In the way to do it in this year, because we're seeing that increase in staff and medical costs and some of these other areas, we have gone to our reserves. The reserves that the library has tends to be money that's been given by the public, by community members and community businesses. It's not the money that comes from municipal taxation. So it's been used in the past to help the library along a number of projects that it's working on. For example, we have one reserve fund that is when people want to make a donation towards books and materials, and it's not a large fund. We have 41,000. This utilizing the reserves and see us draw on 34,000. So to achieve what we're trying to do next year means that we are moving on those reserves in a fairly substantial way.
There have been changes, I heard, to the library book sale.
To the library book sale proceeds. So in the past, the library staff have managed the book sale. We've utilized a lot of volunteers. It's been my goal as the CEO to see that move to being done more by the volunteers. I'm in an awkward situation if I'm coming to the council saying that we need more staffing and I can't demonstrate that we're using volunteers to the fullest ability. So the long-term volunteers have taken on a more active role with the sale and are coordinating more of the sale. All of the people who volunteer in the library in any capacity are really our friends in the library. So between all of those friends in the library, are having them take on the responsibility in ensuring that we are member needs and provide the services that we need.
But the money that's made then now at the library sale is going to the friends of the library. They in turn will make the donations back.
Yes, but it doesn't change anything. It hasn't changed.
It's financial. It doesn't change financial.
No, because this year we raised $18,000 in the book sale, and but then there'll be expenses. We probably were ahead about $15,000. That would go to Friends of the Library book sale account, and then they would turn around and give it back to us as we ask for it. So it's just more legitimizing the process.
And that's used to purchase new books
or other equipment or other resources. So we depend upon what we were looking to do. In the past, we've augmented our book collection to about $15,000 from book sale proceeds. The intent is to continue to do that.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. The first question is, last budget we put in self-checkout. Has that helped you with the production of staff?
Significantly. The staff size for our staff in the library compared to other libraries that are our size in Ontario, we're 4 to 5 full-time staff members now. When you compare that to the average. Putting in the self-checkout helped us to address that we have fewer staff than we need, but it didn't take away the problem. It just made it so that it was more effective.
My second question is about have the other municipalities seen this benefit in this
We've sent out the draft budget to all municipalities telling them that it was, for the past month, that it was under 3%. We haven't had any approvals yet.
So the announced that the townships are putting in a total of $576,000, then you have the rebate.
No, it's still that 3% increase. Council, right? What we're trying to do with the 72,000 is slowly show it and move it off the books. Because what it does is it inflates the total library budget, because it says we have an additional $72,000. But in fact, we give that's money that flows from the province as a grant, and we give that back to municipalities. And the municipalities already budget that they're getting that money back. So in the municipalities' books, they're already addressing it. We're not addressing it on our books. So we go out to the community and it looks like our budget is higher than it actually is, and that money's just flowing through. So what we've been attempting to do this year is start to show that so that in future years it doesn't show up in the funds budget. We address specifically the money that we have to use for local services.
Can you tell me if the budgets that you set for exceed favorably?
And the 3%, it's the Union Library agreement is that it's an accepted budget increase.
I'll just speak quickly to Councilor Red's question. The budget was just finalized for the board last Thursday. So the other municipalities will have just started receiving it, so there won't be any feedback to that from
Jim, just on the point of the author again, council motion, or the board motion for offering full service. Has that been reviewed back to
what I did after we had full approval from all three partner councils, we sent a letter to the Meaford Council asking for clarification on who we would be making the offer to, because as you'll recall from the signing of the agreement, the municipality of Meaford was the signatory to the agreement, though the board has always insisted, because it's a contract, it would be board-to-board negotiations. So we decided to start with who are we talking to first of all. So we just got a response back from that at the start of this week. Just this morning signed a letter that will now be going to the Meaford Public Library Board, suggesting that we sit down and start to have some conversations about it. So that's where things are at present.
Just two questions. Just clarify for me, the one number that's most important is the total spend. It's right at the bottom of page 5. 1.716 million is that's the total spend, because that actually includes that grant that's in and out, which Deputy Mayor asked about. So that's the complete spend by the library for 2017 grant.
That's
revenue, but you're not banking into that. That's revenue, and you're spending everything you can.
Yes, and as you see, what we've done is we've built into this year where we've taken that revenue from.
So it went from 1.6 to 1.7. The other question I have is on.
I think it was just what I just said. We're showing for the first time that we're budgeting ahead to use reserves. Okay, so in the past, we've done $15,000, so there's Councilor right about what was used for resources for books. We didn't budget that we would go to reserve to get that $15,000 year over year. We went to our reserve, got that $15,000, but we weren't showing it. And in working with the board, what we're trying to do is make that much clearer when we're using reserves, when we're budgeting for those reserves, and actually what that consequence for us is in that reserves are not very much. This is not a sustainable way for us.
The another question, just if we back up, go to the second page, 13, 14, 15, there was a line item and it was called Ontario Grants. How's the grants now structured? Because it's not as legible or clear right now, other than one would just assume 72,000. But that can't be right. That's just an incredible drop. So what's the relationship then between the line on page 2 for 13, 14, 15, where it notes 763,000 Ontario grants, 733, 729, and now that's dropped. So just to clarify it.
I can clarify that a bit. So when you look at when you're looking at that lead sheet, I guess the first page, that is a bit confusing. The budget columns include just the city share, but for financial reporting, public sector accounting board standards, we do have to consolidate 100% of the library's operations into our operations. So when you see 13, 14, 15, that reflects the total library's operations.
Okay, so we just have a bad item on that line item. Ontario grant.
It's two different things. The consolidated budget report for us shows the adult learning center. The adult learning center is not funded municipally, it's not funded. It's the library structure level. The funding comes fully from the community and from the grants. We received $700,000 grants for that, we staff with that. But that is, it's never been funded by the city. So it's not municipal wise. And so it doesn't, it would inflate everything and would give you a structural presentation of the organization that would really be
Tim, the reserve, do you think there was a fluctuation 5 years that will level out?
No, sir, I think that next year will be talking as the library board. There will be some areas that we can continue to do savings. Like the Union Library Agreement in the structure of 3% capping and our willingness to stay within it has created a long-term challenge for us.
So using that reserve this year is strictly to hit that 3% agreement, which is all of our neighbors and using that mechanism.
Yes.
So do you have a long-term plan at this point to support the long-term plan at this point? Are you going to look back at A and B? And then what happens with Beaver? Is there a plan?
So, the library is starting its strategic planning process, and part of that will be looking at the type of things that we're spending money on, the services that we're offering to our communities. The first meeting is November 15th at 2 o'clock in the library. Public veterans invited. The second meeting is November 29th at 7. There'll also be so part of that process should help us as a board and as an organization to have a better idea of where we're tapping for the future, what makes sense, and what we should be looking at as communities. The second question. At this point, our understanding is that the municipality of Newford is open to the idea of funding for all citizens of Newford. Given that, there should be no direct ramification. It will be a rolling 3-year average of Newford calculations. If there was an increase in the people who Newford using notes a hybrid, we would see that share balance out. So there would be a more cost to Newford than the other municipalities if they actually went up faster than our other members.
One question, a few years ago now, So the cost of the books is going up faster than inflation. That's still going on.
Yes, and not just the cost of books, the cost of our electronic resources, and our need to supply those. So typically, we've always had $105,000 as a resource budget to do everything, all books and all electronic resources. We've augmented that with $15,000 from the book sale to make it $120,000, and that's been the same for many, many years. So we haven't seen an increase in that. This budget puts that at $140,000. It earmarks $50,000 of that for electronic resources.
Okay, thank you, because that was one of the factors that a number of years ago, the city needed to correct
With the books of about 292,000 people through our doors a year and 220,000 serves. If you looked at a dollar replacement cost on our serves, you would look at a budget, a more realistic budget of $20,000.
Thank you.
Before you do it, Jim, take the last question. Just quicker, Jim, what's your total salary?
16 for the library.
That's full-time?
Full-time.
And I don't have a question, I just wanted to wrap up since we're having a discussion here with council. And by the way, Councilor McManaman, that number is the same number of staff we had in 1974 in the library. It hasn't changed since then. That sort of underlines part of what Tim's saying. I want to comment on Councillor Lemon's question about the book budget. I think that we all anticipated with the advent of e-resources, things would become more accessible and cheaper and easier to maintain. But it's interesting the way that works, because would you know that an e-book costs the same as a paper book, as a printed book? So an e-book costs the same as a brand new hardcover. And the publishers of e-books are actually trying to get the turnaround. So where a hardcover book would be replaced every 18 months, they now want you to repay for the e-book every 18 months, the full price. So costs are not going down, that's for sure. And I think that, Tim's comments have been great. I happen to have been the board chair way back in the early 2000s when we went over the 2.99% with the library budget, and it was turned down by all of our union partners, and we had to go back to the table and renegotiate that. It wasn't an awful lot of fun. I've always referred to the union agreement as our greatest blessing and our greatest curse at the same time, and certainly it is a balancing act all of the time to try to keep that agreement together, to try to keep the partners happy. But I think we're coming to a time now where we are going to have to step up as the key partner, the 60% share partner in that agreement, and say things have got to change here at the library. We have got to start increasing the budget of the library. I'm not talking significant, but it's got to start going up beyond that 2.99%. In many years in the past decade, 2.99 hasn't even kept up with utilities and insurance costs. We have more people through that library in a month than go through the Tom in a year. We have more people through that library in a year than come through this building. And I think it's time for us to recognize the importance. And I'm not suggesting anyone doesn't, but this is a key feature of this community, the public library, and I would invite any of you to come in there any time of day and look at the usage that building is getting. It is a fantastic investment in the future of our community. And I really, as you can tell, feel passionately that we really need to start taking a closer look. I think our strategic planning is going to help give council a better idea of where we need to go in the future. But, we just can't go on with these minimal increases at the library and continue to offer the service. And I'm saying that, I'll remind council about 4 years ago when I was not on council but was chair of the board, and the suggestion of Monday closings came up, and I'll just remind the councillors who were here and the people who saw this in the public what the community response was to the idea of reducing service at the library. It was not received well. I don't think it would be received well if we try to do it again. But we do need to work together to find a way to address this issue in the long term.
Maybe it's a question for Tim or maybe, is there, we've all heard the stories of what the basement looks like in the library. So in the next so many years, is there a capital plan of what the library is expecting to get from the city on the capital side of things? The last thing I heard was the water line there is going so
I think we could describe it as a river runs through it, Councillor Dodd. But Tim, did you want to comment on that?
We've had discussions with senior managers in the city and we're working on the process for that after school. So we're looking at a long-term plan for that.
If I could, Your Worship, Tim's correct, we talked about that, and certainly experiencing our own issues with the building and with the goal, you can probably see us coming forward in silly business. I'm proposing the council to give them an assessment on that road as well. Professionals come in and tell us what's the shape of the road, what are you? Say what we'll do with it, but at least then we'll have to explain to it, see how it works, say that's the capability of it. Collectively, what's our plan for the next 20 years, what are the facilities, so I think you'll see that coming forward.
Well, I think that building assessment is going to do. I can remember when we worked on the current aid, I was on the board at that time, and discovered the ceiling connections were going or had gone. And had we not moved in at that point, we could have had the ceiling collapse and the building is used a lot. It's a beautiful building, but maybe actually wonderful in most communities, series of times, we've kept our valuable assets, like all assets you have to have.
Thank you very much, Tim. That's, good. Okay, what's next?
Next, we're going to head back to Capital, where we left off at our last meeting in October. So our total tax-funded capital budget is currently now at 1.988, recognizing that 50,000 roughly had been transferred to the operating budget, formerly in capital. Staff reduced the tax-funded capital by a further $50,000 since our last meeting. The other items that we've recommended changing since the last meeting is a deferral of the King Street application. We're adding a pay equity review, adding Canada Day banners, changing the fleet replacement strategy at the parks with replacing the mower and tractor, eliminating the MD, as well as deferring the replacement of a truck. And then finally deferring the completion of the Jervis Bay Park pillars until 2017. So I might just start with going through each of those specific detail sheets, and then if we want to go through just each department quickly of the capital budget, we can do that again. But just to remind council, the King Street application, and I might actually jump back right here. As council is aware, the city is currently undertaking an update to our city website. So I'm just going to bring up our current city website right now. And so this is what you see when you come to our current city website. If you were to visit this site from your phone or your tablet, it doesn't change the way the website is presented. It basically just shrinks it down very small in order to fit that screen size. So our new city website is going to have a better mobile presence just by simply recognizing the type of interface that you're using. And And just to quickly demonstrate that, I'm just going to show Burlington. Burlington's website is provided by the same company that is working on ours with us. It's eSolutions. So basically, if I shrink the size of that screen, it recognizes that I'm on a smaller screen, and it changes the way that the website is presented so that it fits on whatever type of unit that you're using. So you can see when it's in the large mode, everything's there, and then along the bottom, things are spread out. When I shrink it down, it knows that, and it stacks those bottom tiles so that they fit in the unit. So it's going to have a lot more user-friendly mobile presence. Given that King Street really is about accessing our website information as a mobile app, though staff does see the benefit of having this application, I think that the decision was made that let's wait and see how our actual website is rolled out when it goes live in early 2017. And then we can address sort of what specific needs are over and above what we're going to give them, rather than take on that King Street app immediately. So I don't think there's any less importance. We're just recommending at this point that we defer that. So I have provided in your packages sort of a package from King Street that just explains what it does. I also have just a link here. And I can certainly send this website out around if anyone's interested. It just sort of imitates what that smartphone will do. So if we're going to visit a municipality, I'm going to choose the City of Waterloo. This is what the app would look like on a phone. There's these tiles along the bottoms of the different things that you can accomplish while you're on your phone. Some of the ones that we've talked about are the Where's Your Bus app. One of the ones that I really like is a Report It app. So it uses your phone's GPS capabilities. If you have an issue or find something around the city that you want to report back to the city, you can use that app, and it automatically knows where you are and sends that information back to the host city, and they can address it. You can send a photograph or something like that. So if you're reporting a pothole, or if you want to say, make a comment or anything like that, it's a neat way to keep back and forth sort of right there at your fingertips. There's apps for events, parks and trails, so with mapping capabilities to show you where you are on parks and trails. There's lots of different ones that we will potentially look at and recommend to council like the year 2018. And like I did say, you have that full brochure in your agendas if you want to take it.
Just quickly, the reporting problem app, is that just that part of our website? Just that? Because I just think that's really, probably others, but.
I'll refer to Sean, or if you want to speak to that, they probably know better than I do what we're looking at.
Yes, to report a problem to the city, we pretty much did a module called Report It. So basically, we'll be able to go to our website, click the little on report, whether it be a pothole, TV, sign problem, or just a general issue that we want to contact the city, and we'll be able to go in and fill in the form and we'll email to the city.
So that will be on the website, just click on it.
Yeah, basically it's an accordion style. So basically there's a whole list of things they can report. They click on it and then it brings up the form, fill in the form, and it sends to the city admin.
Is there an easier way? That just sounds complicated. I don't know about others, but one of the biggest things you get is you get an email, perhaps a phone call, that the street lights are on. There's cameras on the traffic count, small things like that. And just maybe the way you just described it, I'm not sure if it's going to fill in the form of the street light is. They just want to let you know the street lights are on.
Now there is an app, and the demo last week that we made in conjunction with King Street. It's an option as well. We just haven't got that far. The first step was to get it on the new website, building that, and then look at the add-ons afterwards. But there is an actual app you get for your phone. It's called Fix, I think. And basically it's an app where it does the same things. Basically they just click on it and
$5,000, that's not going to be an annual cost. That's a first-year setup cost, and then there's a lower $4,000 to $5,000 yearly maintenance cost.
Exactly, so that would be the one-time setup cost. And actually, of that 25, we were estimating that about 20% of that would actually be funded from tax, because a lot of the apps would relate to either user fee services or rate-funded services. We would draw on those specific reserves to help fund that portion of the project.
Because all I want to say is I appreciate staff's advice on delaying it a year, but I think the thing that appeals to me about Pink Street is its ease of use. A mobile optimized website is still a website no matter which way you cut it, and the navigation is still website navigation. Where when you go to Pink Street, you're looking at a tile, you're hitting the tile for the thing that you want, you're not surfing through a website, looking at menus, trying to find what you're doing. I think that ease of use is part of what appealed to me. The other thing that got me excited about it, and I mean, I know there are many apps that will do this, and maybe Pink Street isn't the be-all, end-all, but just strictly from an economic development and tourism perspective, what I liked when you took us to Waterloo, which is actually where I went when I was investigating, was the ability from a distance to look at what's going on in another community. And, opportunity is literally passing on sound by every Friday night out at Rockford at that bypass. Go out there some Friday night and look at the line of the traffic that's going around this community. And we as a council and as a city have to find a way to capture that business and bring some of it into this community. This isn't the only way it's going to happen. But when I looked at this, I thought, my God, here's a great way for people from Waterloo to look at what's going on in Owen Sound this weekend when they're coming up and they know they'll be in the region and see what's going on. So for me, that's even more than reporting a problem or finding out what day cardboard recycling day is. I mean, that's what excited me about the possibilities for this. And personally, as you know, I use my phone for a lot, but I'm still probably like most of us in the room here. I still have the laptop and I use it for a lot of the investigating I do. But, we're on the receding edge of the curve now. 70% of people, 80% of people, 80% of search now is mobile. It's done from a handheld device. It's not done from a computer. And I think as a community, we could delay this a year, but, personally, I think we've got to get with the times and get with what's going on and take this forward this year. And I'll stop. I can go on and on.
Scott, next.
I don't have too much to add. I think it's good to run out the new website this year and then look at this for 2018. I would just, you don't want to make it so easy that everybody's communicating and then you Jeff Wallace is following up on, or Pam Coulter sending people out because somebody reported a password that has Emerald Ash for they think, and they don't know. So in the same breath, we want to just sit back and you can't just overwhelm your existing staff with what potentially could get here. It looks very good. I see this in the workplace all the time. I have to say no. I have augmented reality, something that I took part in the downtown initiative, just to take part in it, because it was a feel-good thing for downtown. And like, downtown, does it have any value to me? None. Zero. Is it any ways to money? None of that. Because nobody can find it on the web anyway. Google has that. So when it comes to trail networks, and I'm from the Waterloo as well, there's a lot of stuff there that's student stuff. That's right, but University of Waterloo has uncovered, and so does Wilfrid Laurier. They have already the access point. So that's why I think this is good to sit back for 1 year and look at it after we get the website going, because at the same time you can duplicate stuff to death. And I just get so familiar with it at work. No is a hard word to say to people, and you can write in and right up front with it. You should buy this because I know your business better than you do. No offense. I think it's good to look at it.
Scott's kind of touching on it, just about criticizing the plan. wording, something's wrong. It's the easiest thing. It's gotta be a little, because they're looking, they're hundreds of times.
Travis?
When we first looked at this, did we ever get any numbers from other subscribing municipalities to see what their usage rates are after this happened, how many downloads they're getting, how often is it the first time download they use for the first 2 weeks, and then, you know, the enjoyment that phases out, they don't care that to find another way. Like, my only thing is when it's great that apps can do that availability, that mobility, and able to do all that information on your cell phone by downloading the app. But apps are such a thing that they change all the time. You just watch Vine with the major application for iPhones and everything. It was worth about $1.something billion and it went out of business in the last maybe 8 months. So it's great to get the first fizzle and people pay attention to it and they love it. Okay, it's so easy. But in 2 weeks they say, yeah, whatever, and it just sits on your phone and what you're doing. Think how many times you look at your iPhone and you download the Sports app. What was the last time you looked at it again after myself using an update? Apps I just find are such a fad. They're always something else to do about. You can do Bing Street this year, and 3 years later they're going to say you could do Bing Street and do the exact same thing a little bit better. Like, and that's my only issue with spending $25,000 for an application, whether it's coming from reserves or what it's coming from. I would like to see the longevity of what the product actually is going to be, because we're seeing augmented reality coming into place in the tourism sector and all these other things. Maybe that's the new thing. That's the new craze. Why are we getting back onto something else that potentially is going to be out of front and no one's going to pay attention to these things? Like, and we're going to have to make someone do all the work for that. We're going to have to get Peter and we're going to have to get Sean to do all the work to investigate that. And then manage another application that's going to have 2 different areas where they're reporting claims and someone's got to go in there and say, oh, that's okay. I mean, they're looking at the emails that come from 2 different applications, the website ends. So that's my only issue, but yes, it's $25,000. Yes, it comes from reserves. Taxation is $5,000. I just don't, I would like to know what the actual value of that is from other municipalities, or what actually is used, downloaded, and how often it's actually being used monthly, opposed to just being downloaded and sits on some type of thing that's never been used.
Looking for bills.
That's a Philadelphia right there.
If Bing takes over in 3 years, shouldn't we be switching to Bing anyway? Anyway, Peter.
My feeling is that this is a new generation of technology. There's certain things on this getting events that people who are coming to our area. Fantastically important. Road closed, believe it or not. I ran into this the other day. I was going up to the hospital for some tests, and they were paving 10th Street extension. I didn't know that. So we had to back off.
You got an email on that,
I didn't check it before I went. It was, oh, and well, I might add, the term solicitor, what can I say? But anyway, transit, where's my bus? That would be a great benefit to a lot of people who wonder if the bus is running on time. And I'm particularly interested in this because when you go to the 10th Street Bridge and traffic becomes hell in the sound, that's going to become really, really important. I think it's something we should be looking at. I can understand the deferral until we get the website up and running, but I think it should be a priority for 2017 or 2018 get this going, because really we need it and we need it badly in order to sell our community. And it does sell. People do yeah, people like hard copies of maps and things, but when you're coming into town, it's really nice to know for any road closures to speak you in the best way. You have to think about making people happy when they get it.
Just
Just a reminder to council that there is a motion by Councillor Gregg that was tabled until after the King Street application or presentation was provided, that the King Street application be removed from the 2017 capital budget.
Have that for the motion. Any further discussion on I guess we should wait for it to come back.
This one here is staff recommendation to defer as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. I think it's, yeah.
Just remember that.
You ever vote down there earlier?
Pardon?
We come to a dead stop. We never get anything done.
If I could spread that on my roads and be 12 feet tall.
So, John's motion got up at the last meeting, which was not to proceed with the consent committee. So that motion is now up. And we're going to call the vote, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
The next item is something that's actually been added since our last capital budget meeting, and this is for a pay equity review. I do believe this came up through one of our other discussions, another report as well. Basically, the city does not currently have a pay equity plan that we can rely on if there are any pay equity complaints that come forward. We recently had a complaint in 2015, which did end up costing us $10,000 in consulting to defend that because we didn't have the plan in place in order to defend it. So that would be part of this. The other part is an external market review, just looking at our wages throughout the corporation, and then finally looking at a job evaluation process. And this is usually something that comes out of the union negotiations as well, that they require that we go through the job evaluation process and make sure that positions are properly positioned on our bid. So there's 3 parts to that. We're recommending a total cost of $40,000 in 2017.
Much like departments, I think it's well spent. My only question is, when they do the job evaluation, do they ever lower any?
Through your worship, there are positions that are lowered based on our current policy. If there is an incumbent, that incumbent's position becomes red circled, so that person doesn't actually receive a decrease. However, they don't experience any wage increases. And then if and when the position becomes vacant, it would be at the lower grade or lower scale if it was moved.
That makes me happy to know that you go this way.
The motion on that case?
I don't think we need a motion on this specifically. It is currently in the budget unless you want to see it.
Who's got comments?
Just on this whole page, not this page, but the summary page of it, just want to be clear. At the beginning, we talked about a 0.7 increase in capital budget, 145,000, is that the right number?
It was at 175 of that. Or sorry, it was at 195 of that. It's now down to 145. We reduced that by 50,000.
And the 145 is the 0.7 increase over last year's capital. I know.
At 145, it's a dedicated capital increase of 0.5. However, if you were to keep in mind that we've moved 50,000 over to the operating budget, we still are at that 195 area, and so that's at a 0.7%.
And these changes that are on the summary sheet, this one, the King Street deferral, you're going to go through the rest of them here. That keeps us at 145?
Correct.
So with these changes, 145, factor in 50,000 of the operating, we're still at 1.7.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So what was the Canada Day banners at 10,000? $50,000?
Sure, so if you want to move past the pay equity, the next one is Canada banners. If you have specific questions, Ms. Coulter can respond to those. This is funded from the, one of our reserves that we had here for this type of expense.
So each year, when government continued the second annual, as part of the budget, did in 2010, when the banners that were put up and taken down every year around the banners have been tattered and kind of worn out, so we have less to put up and it has less impact. Last year, the same manager had to complain at the time of Canada that he would have quite a bit. So yeah, fair enough. Those banners are worn out. There's not enough of them. So we thought for Canada Day, a special celebration in 2017, that we would put the replacement banners in the budget. But they would be used in subsequent years as well. The reserve that it's coming from is the red fund, and it's a very much less than that we're working on the development fund. We thought this would be
I'm going to go sort of to the Curly side, but just for a second, we'll look at the Canadian flag. Again, what I'm not sure which one, what's the name of the building here? Right, great. Every year you got the fire department, you know, the red flag, actually, goes on top of the, Selden has what I was called now, for, Remembrance Day, and the veterans really noticing this type. So Craig always looked after that quietly on his own, and keeps my attention around here, so everyone's aware we're, they know quite a lot of people. But it's maybe that's just across the line, it's like over the hour, I don't know what the clock is. So was a phone call from Greg? Or? I believe that, and again, we're having to drive by. It's just one of those little pieces of information that somebody's had that retired with. Okay, sorry about that.
So this is already included in the budget.
The next item is just a deferral, so the former budget that we saw the replacement of this truck, and after review of the fleet reserves and our inventory, our manager of Parks and Recreation has recommended that we defer the replacement until 2018. The next item is the Jervis Bay Park pillar leveling. This is the information sheet that was used in 2016 when the project first came forward. This would be to stabilize and move those two pillars. My understanding is quotes did come in slightly over budget, so we moved it forward to 2018 at the full cost of $18,000.
We're going to be celebrating 150, 160. Why are we moving it ahead to 20?
Sorry, I said that wrong. It should be 2017. Wasn't our 16 budget?
Yeah, so that has been a narrative of people in the city since the 8th. That's when we were not going to revive it. By the vibration.
The 2018, I'm sure, will be mayoral election.
No, sorry, that was mine. I missaid that. It was definitely the 2017 budget. The next item, and the next two items actually.
I did just want to say, this item was in the 2014 budget. We actually didn't, it was brought forward in the 2014 budget. It didn't get budget approved. It didn't have the other funding. It was funded in 2016. Mr. Parsons started around the first of June. He's had a lot of capital to take on. This one came in double the budget. So we were able to find a bit of capital money to go around to put forward this project. We also were very aware and didn't want to
under the parks equipment as well. And there's sort of two items tied here together, a tractor and a gang mower. In looking at the requirements at the park, this item was moved forward while other items were deferred. And the addition of the tractor or I guess the replacement, I should say, of the tractor and the gang mower in 2017 still allowed parks to reduce their overall contributions to reserves this year $35,000. So this does fall within that replacement strategy. And this would be in place of that MP that DP disclosed that.
How old is that tractor?
This would be replacing the MP.
There's also a tractor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there was if you can recall, before all grass cutting was done by parks, there was some kind of work. At the time that the grass cutting was consolidated in parks, they transferred a few pieces of equipment, and one was a tractor. And those remained for public works. They're now recognized with Mr. Carson working on asset management. We refined that list so that a tractor and mower, which are presently in the fleet, have been recognized. They're due for replacement. I don't know if you can see here that we can let you know. But essentially, we had two pieces of equipment, the MP and the tractor that do the same function. Mr. Parsons, after having a year of grass cutting under his belt, is recommending that we reduce one piece of equipment, but it is time to replace it. We can get you the
It says 1998, sorry, I'm just.
It isn't old.
The other item we have here is a follow-up report to an item that is still in the 2017 capital budget that relates to a two-year drainage plan and implementation of the Old Sound Soccer Complex. I'll let the Director of Public Works Engineer present that report.
When the complex was first established, they didn't do a master drainage plan. The complex has expanded over the years, and while they look at drainage on a case-by-case basis as each project is done, they haven't addressed the overall issue. And essentially what's happening is they just move the water around the site. They haven't gotten rid of it. The strategy seems to be to direct it to a ditch and then let it sit there and it will slow away eventually. The proposed drainage plan would develop a strategy to deal with the drainage effectively and will give it an outlet so that we can put it somewhere for final disposal. So that's the main thing.
really 10
That's our contribution.
So, I guess one of the things is, so the main issue is that there's drainage there, and it's causing a mess on their field, so that's it, so is there more maintenance costs that are coming associated with it? Just
What's happening is that the water is backing up because the storage facilities are not large enough. The water's backing up and sitting on the field, so it makes the field spongy and whatnot. And I'm sure that will result in increased maintenance costs.
Well, I'll move that recommendation that we do that.
Still in the budget, it's in the budget already, so we don't have to.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead. I won't support that. I would, I think that starting with being Rainford, which is kind of up from the soccer complex, is a huge initiative, it's a big dollar item. It's something that as Councilor London mentioned goes back decades. I think it's a starting point. And I realized when I've been at the soccer complex, the biggest issues I've seen is some of the you don't know where to put lawn care because of the food track. That can be the biggest, huge problem. Mine is just from a comfort level. In 2014, we executive minutes for minor soccer, and I think last year was a bit of an upswing, but they had experienced 3 consecutive years of downturn in registration. And it's due to financial hardships in family, demographics, and non-residents for the items mentioned. I'm not in favor of spending more money when financial hardships is something that can be experienced by people all over the place. It's just a way to go for tax base. And I think starting with, the Kenny drainage project, which we've been well versed with in the last month, that's really early. I think that's an excellent starting point, but I can't support it. I mean, at some point you just have to do what you can do, and I think we can do it. I think that needs to hold on. We've got the facility there right now to serve our needs, and if we do have growth, and we hope we will, down the road we can. One thing that Councillor Thomas and I do with the trust they do meet with the school board, and they're looking for relationships and basically money from the municipality, and we have nothing to offer. And this is an example of you can dump more money into an individual complex, or you can plan for the future and work more so maybe with facilities that are already there, in such a case of the school board. So I think it's an excellent complex as it is right now, and I won't support it. And I like it.
I'm not a soccer fan, but this is something that we do basketball team, coverage team, between hundreds of thousands of people in soccer teams, basketball teams. These teams pick real tournaments for the ones that started by
part of the transit enhancements. I can pull up that original detailed sheet that was
Carry on, or are you going to explain some of that, or walk through, or?
I can pass it over to Ken if he wants to talk about it more. It is included in this 17
Well, I'll make a motion right now that it be removed from the budget for 2017 until, like I said, the report comes back to operations committee to study the current fare structure for transit. But there is no way, with that kind of evidence that was put in front of us yesterday, that I would support spending $15,000 on a marketing study. When, I mean, if you spent that kind of money on numbers like that in front of you in the workplace, you put your job on the line. Pure and simple. Those numbers were clear as day. You have an increase and you've got a drop in ridership, you're going to do a marketing study, you would simply, that would be your job, going on the line to spend money to spend that. So I would motion that be removed in the Senate operations committee for further report.
Okay, so motions there. Peter has his hand up first.
Okay, I support the council on that. I would really like to see, we get a monthly report on budget. I would like to see what the rate is in a month and what the revenue and the change. And so we could actually track at what point our total revenue is going down as we increase the rates. And once we find out what that break point is, then perhaps we can adjust our rates. I think it's really important. I think we've gone too far or too high the rates we have for the service we're offering. And I would suggest that as part of what goes with the committee would be a study on what the rate was each month, what the ridership was each month, and we could soon see when it started to decline.
We get a dashboard ready for us.
That is correct, Your Worship, but that dashboard pertains to special transport.
There you go, so Travis, next.
My only question is, I know we discussed this yesterday, we discussed that the issue that's not in operations. Maybe I have requested that they consult for control on the fare rates within that operation. When is the actual next operations? We're not going to be doing the budget today. We're not formally doing it until December or January. So if it does go to the next operation, you're not just holding this for a table until we get the operations.
Your Worship, there's no urgency attached with making a decision. So what I'm going to suggest is we'll pull together the information. We'll provide a report to operations committee. It will come up. I'm suspecting something in the middle of January, given the other things that are on the present time. And then we can deal with it in a thoughtful way.
I just want to be clear, so I think talking about taking it off the budget for 2017.
As it stands right there, it's currently in the budget, and there's no way I would support that.
So you're talking about
Budget.
taking it off the budget for 2017?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So it doesn't matter what we do in January, that puts it off to 2018 before we can do anything. It's been how many years without any marketing, only we talk about marketing since we did that. That was the last council, that's my only concern.
Good worship, I think what Ken was saying is, because of the odd funding, so much coming from rates, so much coming from gas taxes, will see what our people are doing. And if council decides to do something with that, we can still, I would say, bring all of that in under this budget because of this unallocated reserve fund. So the urgency is, let's have a look. Let's see what council wants to do, try something different, and then we'll go ahead. I will tell you, we won't move on a marketing plan in January, February for the operation. Unless the council says no, start that in. But we have lots of time to look at this. It doesn't affect this budget. We have reserve funds we can commonly use it for things like commitment. And that may include council deciding to, quite frankly, reduce rates and see if that happens.
Thank you. I support the operations committee taking a look at the rate structure. Fully in favor of that. Also fully in favor of moving forward and increase the ridership. So I don't support the motion, I support keeping this in the budget and before that just any reason policy to lay that. You spoke about the information that was handed out. And I agree that should be looked at. It should be all of that, not just one example. Aurelia has, she raised it, pretty well triple our ridership. They're double almost any of our other comparative communities. Clearly something's going on in Aurelia that's causing those huge numbers. Is it the rate structure? Could be. You mentioned, I don't know. If we're just going to look at the rate structure in isolation, Orangeville has the exact same rate structure as Aurelia, which appears to be. And yet they have half of our riders. So if it's all about the rate structure, why is Orangeville half of our ridership? I don't know the answer to that either. But Stratford has, by these numbers, triple our ridership. And they charge more than us. So if it's all about the rate structure, why is Stratford's numbers should be lower too? I think what you're going to see is each community has different reasons and rationales for why. It really has, you mentioned the college. Maybe there's something we should be doing more work with our college. I wonder if that's directly impacted. You're correct, we should study it. Don't study it in isolation, is what I'm saying. Because if we're going to, we should increase our rates and we'll meet Stratford's numbers. Stratford's 25 cents more than us and we'll double our number. Let's increase our rate by 25 cents.
They're
right, it's the same logic. So, in Orangeville, again, it's the exact same rate as Aurelia. And we're half our number. Hopefully we should drop our rates. All I'm saying is there's a lot to understanding how you get to those numbers. So, going back, I support the money in the budget that's coming from gas tax, from transit reserve. Let's move forward on something now. But I won't be supporting it.
Well, Councilor McManaman has hit on a lot of what I was going to say. I mean, I see the issues as separate and connected. You got to have a marketing plan. It doesn't matter what kind of business you're in. People have to know what you have and what's available. So I don't support the motion because I firmly believe that marketing money should be in there everywhere, and we should be marketing transit constantly in this community. I also agree that, you know, the issue is much broader than just the fares that we charge. But, you know, I got to tell you, for me, as soon as somebody around the table mentions transit, I get all wiggly inside because, man, this has been one of those issues that Owen Sound has struggled with forever. I mean, I'll tell you a very quick story. I have an acquaintance who was going to stop driving his car to work. He was going to start riding the bus because it was greener. It was a greener way to behave. And I think that's something when we consider marketing that we need to get into that marketing. The problem was he could get to work, but he couldn't get home because the buses stopped running at 5:30-ish. I guess the last route went by. He didn't get up to the bus stop till 10 to 6. So, I mean, if we're gonna look at it, we need to look at all of it, and we need to understand in our community what the obstacles are to ridership. You know, not just the care. What are the other, because there are other obstacles. So, I mean, I'm not suggesting anything at this point, but I am saying that, as Councillor McManaman has pointed out, I think the issue is much, much bigger than just the fare. And I thought that yesterday when that conversation was going on. And I think that if we're going to look at it, let's not take a half-assed look at it. Let's really look at it. Let's get into the whole thing and look at the whole system and look at all of the issues and see if there is a solution. It could be a combination of fare, it could be a combination of service hours. I mean, I don't know enough about it to know what it could be. But, you know, at this point, I certainly support keeping the marketing money in there because, again, you know, we have a problem. I think we need a long-term solution, but I don't think cutting the marketing money out is a long-term solution or a solution that we can consider. I think we need to try to do anything we can right now in the short term to get that ridership back.
Brian? I just want to say we can't do any of what can ordering and stuff.
My comments are, transit is based on supply and demand. You're not going to find out until you do a marketing study. Marketing study may result in fare changes. So it's all connected.
Travis?
Thank you, Worship. Just the general conversation we had yesterday, and Councilor Kennedy brought it up again, was the partnership that William May potentially have with the college. We have that work in with the college here in Owen Sound, and they pay their student fees a percentage of that goes towards giving them a city bus pass.
We don't currently, we've been in discussions, the mayor and I, with college, and there's some discussion for exactly how to do that. I would say both sides are not sure how to move that forward and what exactly they would be doing. I mean, both sides then can't do a free ridership.
Absolutely, but and that's, I guess I just find that quite odd because every school that I was at in Western Ones as well, when you look at other municipalities that have the school system, secondary, post-secondary school there, they have a bus pass associated with their student fees to ensure those students are using that ridership.
Get around the school, the bus,
Okay, never mind, sorry. Well, but at least if we're having that discussion, maybe that's something that we talk with Americans and have a lot of
First of all, I think that it's going to take a lot of work. There's a lot of information out there that we can do ourselves. And also, as Tim is right, in Stratford, they have buses come every 15 minutes. They've got about 15 buses. They spread all over the city. That's why it's so successful. The best marketing plan, in my mind, that you can do is to send a flyer out to all of the units north of 24th Street West, north of 18th Street on the east side, and the seniors' apartments, put the routes out there, lower the price for one month to see what happens. I just happen to be out in the 28th Street area an awful lot, and most times those people driving those buses are to do their shopping and that's when they go out and do their shopping. But when they take it, and it takes them a long time to do it, at least 2 hours on the bus because they have to take the bus up, transfer it, and do the shopping, do the same like that. Our roads are not conducive to helping people. They're not conducive to getting people to work and back. You ask any taxi company that try to do that, they make their living running the 28th Street. That's where they make their living because that's where the taxes are used to live. We do not run buses to help people out. We run them in the morning to get them to work. We don't run them in the morning. We don't run them for people that work from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to midnight. They have to use cars. And a lot of those people are on their time jobs. So if we want our buses to use, we're going to have to tailor them to use.
some of you ran on the fact that we hired consultants, we shouldn't be hiring consultants, but we do hire consultants, but it makes no sense to take their advice and listen to them. We've looked at absolutely all of these things we're talking about. We've looked at the user fees, the fact that the biggest concentrations of potential bus users living or situated in the farthest corners of our city. So spread out way out there, trying to get them all way over there. We looked at extended hours. We looked at going hourly during the day and it started a little bit earlier when half-hour runs in the morning and the afternoon at the concert. Looking for work. We looked at a whole bunch of them. Again, I'm not saying it's representing the even before, but we've been through this and been through this and been through this, and we're pretty sure we went through the game on go far. But one of the things that did come up constantly was that we needed to market the buses, start getting people thinking about the use of it, the ease of it, and trying to get more people onto it. I think it's very good. Heels were a little too long on the market and trying to get people onto that market. So, Scott, if you can wrap up with your motions and we'll vote on it.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mayor Byer, to speak tonight. I just would like to mention, just to address the first comment from Councilor McCann about looking at different communities. The whole idea I had that sheet around was just to provide council with the knowledge that I took a part of the day, not to expense the taxpayers, in July, and went to meet with the Director of Operations in Aurelia to speak about the transit system because they had successfully increased all the ridership numbers in their system. That's why I went there. We've already accomplished it. So I went there to see what they undertook to do that. And what was extra interesting, I think there's a check mark on that sheet that you referred to. He also was formerly the Director of Stratford. So we had a good conversation because he was actually quite knowledgeable inside this community too. So I just wanted to put that information out there because taxpayer done and build it. And he was actually doing more of the benefit from just doing it itself. And I absolutely would echo what the city manager, Mr. Ritchie, said, and the methodology of bringing the information together in the right time of the committee. For the time being, I mean, I think we'll still get that information. It's necessary. The whole idea of my motion is the best marketing you sometimes have is have a sale. That's what the whole reason why we buy radio advertising is often just to promote the fact that you got something, it's exciting, it's a sale, and this is if there was a drop in rates, then you let people know and you've got some extra punch behind it. That's the business rationale of doing it. So that was the idea of the motion was, coordinate it with something. Don't just know that your numbers are bad and then throw something at it, but have something alongside it. And if you've got a fare reduction, now you've got something that you can beat your chest with and you can get out there and you can get excitement all over. So that's the way it is. And I'll just understand that I would certainly echo the comments of the manager and the proper time.
Understand the motion is the 15,000 mark on the budget this year. All the questions in favor? One opposed? So it's defeated.
So for the remainder of the day, I just wanted to do a quick summary of capital and then have the minutes to review from last night's meeting. So I don't know if you want to break down for lunch or and then we come back. I imagine we'll need another half an hour after lunch. But not much longer. You know more.
Yeah, you can have my bag.
Thank you. That is fine. Cool, eh?
Three-quarters of an hour?
Yeah, do you want to come back at 1:45?
You're setting me up, I'm not just setting. Never leave this.
Oh, there's something right now, so they don't disappear.
Well, we'll get going again since we're pretty close now.
That was a great segue. I know I said it yesterday, but I wanted to say it while Sean was here in the room today, just to thank IT for all the work. So they were here, I guess it was the night before yesterday. They tore everything out of council chambers, set it all up here until midnight, then up at the engineering department, carrying that down so that they can move back again today. So it's a tremendous amount of work, and they'll continue to support us as we have in the council meetings here. So again, I wanted to say thank you. Back to staff.
That's good.
Thank you.
Very well done, you get a 5 of it.
So we're pretty much gone through those changes that we recommended to capital. I did get an email from the chief confirming what they are looking for capital in 2017, and the number he gave me is 132. So the former number that he had provided in that spot was 100,000. If I do make that 132, it does increase what our total increase is to 4.15 or 3.23%. And that's by adding the $32,000 to that tax funding.
Why don't I add on to their capital reserve? That's the funding. The motion's already passed through.
Yeah.
So, if we want to get that 3.2303, do you have any ideas of anything that we can look at?
Well, you did have one thing you brought up yesterday about potentially recognizing more insurance savings earlier, and then at year end, if it were the case that was a little bit too optimistic, we would have some or something as a safety net to other funds and factors that we understood. That being said, based on what our expenses are this year to date, and given the timing with everything in spring and things that we're scrapping up in spring, I believe that's the so that's concerned about
If we did that with new chase, how close would we get to?
if we were to add 20,000, say?
Is that about what we need, 20,000 to get us under? No.
No, if you want to get under 3. Another $100,000 would get you down to 3.
And Brian?
Can we not do what we did last year and we asked that to,
Kate, is there an argument that you can throw back at us when we say that we did that last year?
I'll be honest, I remember that happening at the service committee on that conversation with staff. We have gone through, I think we highlighted in the last couple of days everything that's in there. There wasn't a lot of discretionary items in there, so the service review savings have all been reflected. The other items, for the most part, are externally imposed, not necessarily staff recommendations. As far as the increases go, we've attempted to recognize all the savings we have. But as a base budget starting point, that 2016 number, and we will see this on Tuesday when we come forward, we are looking at a deficit this year that we need to fund through a funding sources. We can always go back and look at, I guess, my thoughts would be if there are certain areas we want to look at specifically.
I would say in discussions with Kate, when we do these things, we put it all together from everyone. You get a feel of where little bit concerned about here, but I also, you also here, you have others that are probably a little aggressive on it. I think Kate will tell you, because she told me when I got that question, overall how to feel. I think we're pretty across the breadth of our business. So I don't think we can go back and probably say, if we grabbed all the places where we're conservative, we would probably get to 50,000. But we're saying, when we've got all the places where we think we're a little tight, our exposure would be great. I agree with Kate, if you want us to do something, your worship, the council says, on behalf of the ratepayer, if you really want to get under that number, I would suggest to you the place we can look will be found. You say, in spite of what we just talked about, coming to our asset management plan, that'd be the place where we would simply say, we're not going to do that much. If we go back to the operations, I'm afraid we'd be so lean, we wouldn't feel at least a couple of days. Certainly 100,000 is not there.
Thank you, go back to Brian, go ahead and finish. Well, I was just going to say the other side of that is Stratford W and just so that we can stay true to Peter?
One comment I made on behalf of this, there's been a lot of talk, federal government's going to put more money into infrastructure. And maybe that's their salvation. And maybe we can do that. I fully recognize infrastructure is the way it is being, but we're not alone. Every other municipality in the area of the and if that continues, then we will be able to make inroads on our infrastructure deficit when federal funding becomes available for the rest of us.
I just wanted to underline the comments I made about the library earlier and make the same comments about the city and our budget. You know, we can work hard to cut and cut and cut, but ultimately we're going to end up paying for that in the end one way or the other. I think that you know, it's a bitter pill to swallow, that's for sure. But so many of the items that are affecting our bottom line this year are completely out of our control. And this isn't like a normal budget. This is a budget coming off of a service analysis. We've been through it. We've done it. If we hadn't done that, we'd be looking at $900,000 more than we're looking at now in terms of costs. So my hat's off to staff for all of the work through this process. And I think to go back now and say, well, we want you to cut another percent or another 0.5%. I think it's a fool's game. You know, the one thing that stuck out for me was the Waste Management Fleet Reserve. There's a pile of money sitting there with no purpose in the foreseeable future. And, you know, my suggestion would be that we take some money out of the fleet management, the Waste Management Fleet Reserve to offset this year's tax increase, because that money is there. I know it's a game, it's a shell game, but so much of what we try to do as politicians is a shell game, just to take a bit of the sting out. And you know what I mean? Just to take the sting out for our ratepayers. Because, listen, I pay taxes too, and it's harder, and it's getting harder, and it's getting more expensive. And I mean, you know, the city manager's comments the other day about the next time we do a service analysis, we might be looking at a way grimmer picture than we looked at this time. I mean, you know, let's do what we can. And so anyway, I'll stop. That would be my suggestion, is that we look at the Waste Management Fleet Reserve and consider taking some money out of there and bring the tax increase to what we would like it to be.
If I could, Your Worship, if you recall, when Kate did the agglomeration of all our reserves, we in fact use that.
I'm out of ideas then.
Good shot. That was great.
I was on track.
I hate to be the bearer of
Yeah.
bad news. Going to Arlene next.
Thank you very much. So we're sitting at right now, 4.25% increase in our taxes, our city taxes, and we're relying on the county to come in to lower than 23. What happens if the county doesn't come in with the 1.8? Then they go up.
Ours was up, your worship, again, I think, and the county has been excellent at doing exactly what the province has said should happen, so I applaud the county for that. However, they have to do exactly what the province said they should, as they have downloaded to some municipalities over the years, they've also uploaded from the upper group. And they have said that with the intent that we should share that upload with the lower tiers, and our county has done that, so.
But there are some members on county council right now that feel we should be putting a lot more into the infrastructure fund than we are. And that everybody in the county uses that infrastructure, so therefore everyone in the town should be paying. I'm just saying, I doubt if it'll go up, but the possibility is there. If it does, we're looking at a greater increase. Then when we balance out what we borrowed in what year 11, all our balancing, our tax
Tax policy.
So that's going to put our taxes up even more. So we're looking at a 5% personal tax increase. I'll tell you right now, the city of Lawrencetown, the number of houses that are up for sale, you can't sell the houses.
This has been moving at high prices. This has been the busiest.
There's a lot that aren't moving. There's a lot that aren't moving. There's still 6 houses for sale on Fourth Avenue, Westwood, for sale also on the other stuff. And there could be something on it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, I know we need to raise it. We need to look at the drawing too. And I cannot go for a 4.5% increase to the residential tax, knowing that it's going to go up again. And in order to move our tax company. So you're looking at almost 5% tax increase to the rate to the wholesale, less than the county can do that. So I like the lead shape situation. I think if we could move some of that lead shape, get the chance to manage. So the other question I have, how much money is left in our local control budget for the end of the year?
260.
Through your worship, any surplus or deficit I've calculated for this year takes that into account. So despite that surplus that we have in under control, we're still looking at an overall deficit position.
And we've already applied our surpluses for this year.
Correct, exactly.
I think we need to get that down a little. So how we do it.
Before I move on to Travis, just to follow up there, the upload, and stress anyway, the upload to the county from the provincial government or from the county was $440,000 this year that the province has taken on the service and stuff. So remember, each year our ONPF has come down by hundreds of thousands, so we got 28, if I remember correctly from yesterday. We kept losing money. There was uptake, so it isn't like the county saving or taking. This is the way it's supposed to work. Their costs are coming down, and that cost is supposed to be handed to us in the board here. So again, the $440,000 is being uploaded to the county by the province. So, Travis?
Thank you, Worship. I know one of the other things that we had talked about, I know the newspaper was one area that we had talked about where we didn't see more, maybe we were too conservative on that, but getting some extra funding from that for extra revenue for it. The other part was that was the amount of wage gathering. I know you let us know on other years what were we averaging on that wage gathering. This year I know we're allocating $50,000 to different money originally, but on other years what were we allocating to that number?
In other years, other than this year, we have not
So in general though, how often do you run this often, or is it only going to be happening when it's someone in an upper tier level?
It really depends on the scenario.
And when you're using the wage cap, and we refer again to the library, we use one-time reduction. It really puts us in the hole for next year, so we come forward and say, well, now that gap is gone. So we started normal year, I'll be honest, we start every year probably looking at 4% increase. When we sit down, we throw the numbers up here, we're looking at 4, maybe 5 something. We start trying to cut that down before we ever come down. If we use that cap, one-time funding, whether it's from the reserve or capping, you know people are coming back, you say, well, we have the normal inflationary increases that we pay. Well, you gotta add back that money you saved last year. It gives you a double hit. So, we're only using that this year. It will come back to least next year.
And I understand that you think that, as you mentioned that, but this is exactly what we did last year when we get to use the one section B, right?
We were anticipating another 9 of those people, some of them would not.
So we took out 195 last year, that we did savings last year. We don't know this year we do, that potentially if those savings didn't occur, those positions weren't filled, that we were going to have to face $195,000.
I will tell you, I was pretty sure some of those positions were not coming back, or I would have recommended that strike.
Right. So, maybe this is me thinking, but $50,000 for this wage gap, I think that's a very similar scenario. We really don't have a whole.
It's completely different. Councilman Harris. I know that individual is coming back, we're not going to.
Understandable.
So next year, that person comes back, we're going to have to add that 50 back. Last year, I was pretty confident that when we went through service review, some of those positions that were currently vacant, if not those positions, other positions in the corporation we would not be filled. I was pretty sure of that, or assuming
That's what I'm asking. When you're talking about one position, out of 165 employees plus, easily, we have 50,000 wage gap every single year, for sure.
Well, I think that's a safe assumption.
Right, and so that's why it's good to have, I agree that having 50,000 is a base number in the budget. I guess the question is, could that number not be higher? That saving could be higher. And if we know, I think that's the argument that I tend to agree with.
And you're right, with 150 employees, I can't see the people who come on, but if I know, we have no plan to go through a service review, I have no information sitting from our side of the table, we will adjust our staffing in 2017 or 18. So it's hard for me to put those savings in there knowing I'm going to have to pick them up next year. You can't budget saying we have 150 staff, they're all needed, they all do a purpose, so they should be here at a certain. And then we're going to anticipate that at any given time we're going to have 2 that are not going to be here. I would say to the public that we shouldn't have 158 people, we should have 140 people. I understand what you say, you'll always have certain needs and that kind of thing that we factor in. If you want my opinion, that would be a place I would get this number. I tell you, I think if council really wants to get that number for the public, and we understand that, I would say find it in capital, we'll have $195,000 increase. Or we'll have $100,000. That's just my opinion, but if you want us to find an operating, we'll go back and we will find it. I just hesitate to say that we're probably going to create a problem in 2018.
Going back to Meriden.
I trust that staff have done this extensively, but looked at all reserves for anything possible. Nothing that's in the table. The other thing is, I have suggestions for capital that
I've already had several directors say if they had to give up something here that they would suggest, that I would like to go away and work on that and come back to it.
where do we stand right now in the CPR station site after the announcement by council the other day?
I would say that the vote are going to do some this afternoon. Very early preliminary stage.
Because, boy, I completely agree with Deputy Mayor Wright's comments. The other day in the paper, there was an article about the affordability of food and people can't even healthy food choices. I'm not throwing myself at there's numbers here. The average wage from Steve Furness in this area is $35,000 a year. And there's some numbers that vary from $57,000 to $47,000 in household income. Those people are losing more in hydro increase in a year than in the wage increase. And we are bombarded with it every day that there's an escalation of a gap between classes. People don't have the money in our community. It's just a simple fact. You go around and see people's roofs that need done. Probably not because most of them don't care. They can't afford it. And I totally agree that we can't keep going higher. I just passed around this for information. That's a residential rate comparison to what is essentially our competitors for the municipal portion of assessment. So in 2016, you could write it in, but it was for Owen Sound 0.011-01725. That's per $100,000 of assessment on your home. And we're trying to compete and convince people to live in Owen Sound. For some they can, but this makes it, now you see the argument, now you see the other part of it, where they say it's cheaper to live outside of Owen Sound. I guess, even as an intent to perhaps, one of my thoughts is, could we allocate, still do that work for the CPR station site? Could we allocate that over 17 and 18 and split it and achieve that number that we're
Can you guys answer that question?
That project also is intended to be ventured over the term of whatever lease we put in, so it doesn't have a tax impact to the year when it's finished.
Secondly, just I'm all about fixing roads. A couple weeks ago, I was biking home because it's a sustainable green thing to do, and my bike seat broke. Going in my driveway, the streets are rough. My bike. But if we get the funding or that we've applied for some of these road reconstruction and resurfacing, every year you do wish to do so much resurfacing in our community. I wonder if with the lanes of traffic that we would get infrastructure money for and get done, if maybe we could reduce that 400,000 down to 300,000 to fund it. Because a couple years ago it was less than that. We only just increased that this year, which is a great thing. But at the end of the day, when people are not able to pay for hydro,
and these are all the thoughts that I've had, and Councilor Thomas and I have touched on. Council, staff, and the public has spent the better part of the last 9 months away from the service review. So let's look at the service we offer. Let's look at the needs of our public. And if they do, let's compare to other people who offer those services in the same manner we do, and see if we're offering them efficiently and effectively. Through that process, we quite rightfully found overall $900,000. And for the most part, we found our services do meet the needs of our public. So, I think we've answered that question. On the capital side, the province has put all municipalities on the list. We need to start living within our means. Does that mean this year? probably not, but it means, let's not kid ourselves. We need to start living with our needs. Thus, we are going through an asset management plan that has a plan to be somewhat self-sufficient. And that doesn't mean, by the way, we'll replace all the assets we currently have and continue to grow. It means you will understand the assets we have, we'll manage them better, get a longer life out of them, in better shape for the length of your life, but also, some of our assets, when we get to the end of that, and we understand what the cost is, some, council and public may say, we made a conscious decision, we're not going to replace that asset, because we look at the whole picture, so there will be some reduction there. But I hate to see us have done all that work collectively and included the public all the way along for 9 months. And now we come to a number that we go, we don't like the number. I just need to throw that all out today. If it's a number you want to get to. And it may be, as you say, Councilor, suggesting we reduce the road maintenance budget by $100,000 capital budget. But if that's what council wants to get to that number, we'll go away and work on it, but we put a lot of work in to get to this number. I would strongly suggest you allow us to take it to capital. Again, if you want to add some to the leach aid and do those kind of things that are calculated for us. I just hate to throw away all that work, because today we don't like the number, we override that. We've done everything the way we should, but anyway, that's
Scott, are you done? Yep. Okay, Jim, you're the only one that hasn't spoken, I think.
Sounds like you do. Probably possible that you do not cut the capital budget to say 0.02% or something. It's a fool's game. I've been around here a long time, and I've done it. From personal experience, it's a fool's game. Cut the paving budget here on roads. We have a 100-year plan to replace our roads.
Assuming nothing breaks down between them.
So I understand the hardship you face, but all you're doing by cutting the capital budget is borrowing it from your kids. That's all you're doing. Because it's got to be replaced someday. And, you know, we went through 8-9 months of service review. Let's be honest. There were services we were going to cut. We just spent 8 or 9 months talking about it. So everybody had ample opportunity to say, you know, people did. We discussed it, debated it, and as a group we decided, here's where we are. Some of it you agreed with, some of it you didn't. Or some of it you didn't. But as a group, it was decided. The number is what the number is now. And unless you've got, you know, if there's operating things you don't want to do, then let's not do it. Bring it up, let's debate it, vote, move on. You know, we talked about the airport extensively. Council as a group decided to keep it. Okay, we're done with the airport. We talked about transit forever. As a group, we're going that direction. Done. I just do not cut the capital budget at 1%. We're not even at the 1% increase. We're at 0.7. All you're doing is cut the paving budget, or I know that was just a suggestion, because other ones do. All you're doing is going to redo it.
I think we've had a good discussion and all that. If anyone wants to make a motion, make a motion. Otherwise, we're going to move on. I'm not going to go back and discuss it. Read your top. If anyone wants to make a motion, make a motion. If not, then we ask you to go on. Okay, moving on from here.
So I guess the next phase would be there are a few things we're waiting for, and some of them could have a significant impact on this number. We're waiting for our WSIB surcharge information to be finalized for 2016. We're waiting for our OMPF grant information for 2017 to come through. So there are still a few numbers that I do expect to be able to refine in the next couple of weeks that would have an impact on this, as well as our 2016 and as well. So that would be the next step. We'll continue to make any changes that are required, and then we will come forward with the final capital budget and operating budget for 2017.
sort of a good press office.
Just out of curiosity, I know we discussed the police force, the police here, that we, the next police force will be on there for reserve. What's your next police force?
Just for 1 week ago, so it was in the month.
Yeah, because that's something that can spread back into effect our overall rate as well for, now that you look at the capital side, if you want to reimburse back in the capital, you can try to better, but it be something for the third of this month.
Just to add to that, it may be worth finding out, so when they give that capital figure, that reflects the amount of tax supported capital that they're looking for. Generally, their capital budget is greater and they are applying these for revenues to the remainder of it, so likely we worth more what that full capital budget is and then we're already applying. But I'm sure that will come through if we're looking at the entire revenues and what they're anticipated budget for that is.
One question, we did also ask for the amount in the forward reserve.
Yeah, through that, those monies are generally spent every year. How they get allocated usually happens as a police every year-end journal entry. But in general, it's used to spend. I'll use this year for an example. They do have an amount that they budget for tax-funded capital. They've spent nearly an additional $80,000. So this year, that additional amount will come from those police record check revenues as well as possibly some overages in the operating budget. I know they don't carry significant balance in that they can
Okay, great. Great staff, everybody, thank you for getting us through the last 2 days, and for you guys know the last. When's the process start? 2 months ago?
Start tomorrow, yeah.
So it's 12 months ago in a sense. Good, thanks to all of council for everything, and we've still got the matter that needs to come up from the committee meeting yesterday, which is confirming the recommendation from the ad hoc city hall nomination of ad hoc committee. And if you want to present the reporter is Ken or?
So yesterday there was a meeting of the City Hall Accommodations Ad Hoc Committee. They considered report FIN 1650. There was a number of, so City Council, as you know, had approved the plan for the renovation of City Hall. As the report points out, that there was a request for proposals posted on the city's dates website for pre-qualification of general contractors. There was a few reasons that the report outlines why we do a pre-qualification. The criteria for the evaluation of those proposals is listed in the report, and the proposals were evaluated by a Convex architect, the director of public works and engineering, the manager of property, as well as the capital asset administrator. In addition to the actual proposals, we also did reference checks for the top 6 applicants. The recommendation then, based on the scoring and review of the committee, is outlined in the minutes that are presented for your approval, and are that we would pre-qualify 5
I wonder if you want to explain why we did it so quickly, like the committee meeting yesterday and going through council today, just so everyone's really down.
Your Worship, we want to get the information out to the pre-qualified contractors so that they're going to be prepared to receive the tender. We're working on I won't say an accelerated schedule, but we're certainly working on a very tight schedule. And we don't want to blindside you by saying on the 14th you're shortlisted, and on the 15th here's the tender. So that's the rationale.
Richard has moved approval of that report. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Crystal, I think we went through that. Never finished this week.
Myself, seconded by Councilor O'Leary, that bylaw number 2016-160 be passed and enacted.
And all in favor? That's carried. Thanks. What time did you say we did every month, Kate?
123, I think I said.
Well done. I think you're good off. Thanks, everybody.